going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. It is the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It is November 11th, 2025. And here we are. 11:11. It's not, it's 10 a.m. here. So, you got an hour to get ready for. Well, when the frequencies, okay, look, the Schumann resonance. The frequency, welcome to the other side of the time shift. I hope that, the cosmic energies are doing you well now that we're in the new timeline. And, dude, sometimes you end up on the scary parts of TikTok. I don't mean scary and people are, it's just the right kind of whack jobs where you're just like, okay, so yes, if you measure the Schumann, which is a real thing, the Schumann resonance is a real thing, measuring, electromagnetic energies inherent to the, the Earth itself. They're like, these energies are spiking, and that when that happens, you can tell that you're going one of two places. Y'all know the timeline is splitting. Are you in the new timeline? Here's ways to do. Did you wake up feeling tired this morning? It's like, yeah, motherfucker, it's 2025. Of course. Oh, did you? Well, then you are clearly in the other timeline, and now you need to open your mind and receive the frequency. It's just like, even the new agey fucking insane shit that people get on about these days has become like less and less coherent. It's just like as people try to stuff every single whatever weird mumbo jumbo they've got, they keep trying to stuff it all into one conspiracy theory or whatever. Yeah, Iconoclasm in the chat's right. What happened to the crystals? Crystals were simple, man. You hold the crystals near your body, the toxins get out. I don't know, like that I can wrap my mind around. That's also stupid, but. But and people of course have wrapped this into what is it, the comet, the 3i Atlas. It's speeding up. This celestial object is speeding up in ways that are not normal for not normal. Clearly it is not. It is a sign of non-human intelligence. Like definitely this is not something that is just a normal thing. And yeah, I don't know. I've ended up on the bad end of the internet, I guess. That's the side of the timeline I'm on, is the bad end of the internet, where people are constantly talking about like this ridiculous bullshit, and I'm just like sitting there, I'm like laying in bed watching this, shaking my head, going like, oh man, like it's like here's another new stupid thing. It's just like, why, they're like, I guess like it's better than the old stupid things, maybe. It seems like a little more harmless than I guess the actual danger is that, like, if people will fall for this, they'll fall for anything. Like it's a hop, skip, and a jump from like, we're in a new timeline now, to like, oh, well, the lizard people, wink, wink, to all of a sudden you're like, well, this pizza place is they're kidnapping children and hiding them in the basement of this pizza place, and I've got to go in there and save them, like it's sad, really, and it also, it's in some sick way sad that we've lost the ability to really, really carelessly laugh at conspiracy theorists and their fucking nonsense, because now so many of them morph into like, dangerous, like sick and sad stuff that you're just like, okay, yeah, this is super unfortunate that these things happen. When it was just like harp, when people would just shout harp and point at the sky, and like, I live near a power station and all of my body hair is falling, you're like, okay, what? Sure. No, didn't you read the signs in my yard that say that Best Buy is trying to kill me and my family? I missed the sign. I did not see the signs. But unfortunately, things are a little bit different now. Things are a little bit different around here now. Trying on some new theme music this week. If you listened to the bonus show, then you're aware that the licensing rights to the old music have changed in a way that basically they're no longer available. If I were to move to Japan, I think I would be able to license them. But but I don't. So so that is apparently no longer an option. And so and it's scrambling a little bit here. Found some music that I like, and maybe we'll stick with this. Maybe we'll move some things around. I don't really know. I've never been married to any of the music, so I've been down to kind of change it at the drop of a hat. But we'll see. We'll see if this one sticks or if we want to mess around a little bit. I like the vibes, especially in the morning. A little bit of the island. My daughter started playing Super Mario Jamboree, Super Mario Party Jamboree. Anyway, she started playing Mario Party for the Switch. Because I started letting her use the Switch too. It's really my fault to just like hand her that thing, and she saw the list of games that could be installed and everything else, and before too long she had installed it and started playing it, and she vocally hates it, which was my hope. That was the gambit, right? Of just like, okay, yeah, no, give it a look, try it out, yeah, try this out, try this on for size. And so she's like sitting over here on the bed and not right now, but like, I hate this game. I'm like, yes, exactly, because it's bad. And she's like, I'm so bad at this game. I'm like, no, you're not. The game is bad. It is a bad game. There's a difference. And that's been interesting the past day or two here. She got to a mini game this morning before they have school off today, and so she was playing a little bit this morning, and had me play one of the mini games, and it was like a rhythm game. It's like Donkey Kong doing congas, and then you have to hit the triggers in time. It's like a really shitty little mini game that takes like zero skill at all. You're just like, okay, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Anyway. Speaking of the music and the island rhythms, like as I'm playing it, she's looking at the screen. We're playing Undocked on the couch, and she looks over and goes, "That's a nice rhythm." And I wanted to stop and just go like, "Okay, now are you saying rhythm? Because you should. Are you saying rhythm and saying it incorrectly, or are you talking about the island rhythms? Because like that's not gonna like look." But I just kept going. So anyway, welcome to the other side. We're trying on some new music, and we'll see. For as much as she hates it, she is continuing to play Super Mario Jamboree, which I think is not ideal, but I don't feel like I should keep things from her like that. At least things that are not. Like things that are age inappropriate. Like I try not to let the kids see Mortal Kombat fatalities, though they have seen a few over the last week or so. I feel like when you go back and look at Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, like they're so ridiculous. There's just like, yeah, I don't know, man. This guy pulled this other guy's arms off, and it's just like, I did not show her that one. It's like, I don't know, an arcade machine fell out of the sky and crushed this dude. Like what? It's cool. But yeah, no, I try not to let them. But she's been the reason she has had the Switch too is because she's been playing Street Fighter 6 and has been having fun with that still. And they've both gotten interested in Powerwash Simulator, which we'll talk more about in a little bit here. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back and we'll talk about Powerwash Simulator 2, among other things, right after this. Hey, I don't want to freak you out, but it's kind of already time to start shopping for, the holidays, gift giving, and all of that. Even if you haven't built a list yet, don't worry about it. MeUndies has your back and your butt. MeUndies is making it ridiculously easy to take care of the holidays this year. So whether you're shopping for your partner, your best friend, or just treating yourself, their holiday and Match Me collections make it simple to give a gift that actually fits, literally and emotionally. There's something nice about matching outfits. during the holidays. MeUndies is taking that to the next level with their Match Me collection. So, you know, whether it's matching underwear with your partner, coordinating pajamas for the family photo, or getting festive with your friend group, MeUndies makes it fun, easy, and super, super cozy. They've got really nice holiday prints, next level softness in their fabric, and you know what? You're actually going to want to be caught in matching loungewear all season long with how good this feels. MeUndies is the go-to for unbelievably soft underwear and loungewear made from ultra modal. That's fancy speak for cloud level comfort. This fabric is fantastic. It feels great on the skin. I am I am wearing a pair of their underwear right now. Little some boxers that are like it's snug but not tight. It feels great. It's comfortable. The sort of thing you could lounge around in, you know, for some of these lazier holiday days that are really just right around the corner. They've got 30 million pairs sold, 90,000 5-star reviews, and a problem-free philosophy. That means if you don't love your first pair, it's on them. They're sustainably made. You know, your holiday can feel good and do good. They got cozy joggers, festive onesies, all this sort of stuff. If you're looking to match, if you're just looking for something for yourself, no matter what you're looking for, they've got it. And here's the best part. Right now, you can get up to 50% off. Yeah, half off. It's like a holiday miracle or something. Knock out all of your holiday gifting needs today with MeUndies. To get exclusive holiday deals up to 50% off, go to MeUndies.com/Jeff and use the promo code Jeff. That's MeUndies.com/Jeff. Promo code Jeff for up to 50% off. Powerwash Simulator 2 is... There's one simple change they make that I think is quite literally a game changer. Soap is free. That's right. Free soap for everybody in Powerwash Simulator 2. Before you had to it was not quite micromanaging, but there was an aspect to it of just like, okay, we got to buy soap. And so that had this this terrible knock-on effect in the first game where I just didn't use soap. You know, and everything takes longer. This is true with your body as well. If you blast hot water at your body for a long period of time, it will get some of the dirt off, but you know, soap kind of works. Soap kind of works, man. And so not having to think about any aspect of soap, just like I'm going to push this button to put some soap on and then I'm going to blast it off, has created a different and exciting rhythm to Powerwash Simulator 2 that I have been enjoying. But for whatever the reason is, this game is stressful to me. I don't know, like people I think are playing it in a way that they're that it's like a relaxing kind of like experience, and they're just like the carefree vibes of blasting the dirt off of this public bathroom or this dog-shaped car or whatever. And there's something weirdly tense about Powerwash. This is true for the first game too. Like I'm here like white knuckling it, mouse and keyboard. I got my esports keyboard out to play some Powerwash Simulator 2 because I don't play too many other games with a mouse and keyboard these days, and I wanted to try this thing out. But this stupid half keyboard that I purchased, I was like, yes, no, we're gonna plug this in we're gonna do some snappy tappy for Powerwash Simulator, and it's like it's so. But I am white white knuckling my way through Powerwash Simulator, but also to no avail. Like it's not like I'm trying to speed run and like I've got to do this as fast as possible. There's just something very, I don't know what it is, man. There's a response that my body tenses up. It shouldn't. There's no reason for it to. And maybe it's a factor of using mouse and keyboard, because the only mouse and keyboard games I'm playing these days are games that are, that I'm taking a little more seriously or whatever, and maybe there's something there to it that it just kind of triggers that effect. But I started playing it because it's on Game Pass, and so I was like, well, I guess that means I can, I could download it on the Xbox and let the kids play it there. Though I had my daughter up here playing it with my esports keyboard and mouse, and she pulled a real fucking snobby thing yesterday that I was like, yeah, awesome. I installed it on the Xbox, and my son started playing it, and then he was like, he can use the analog sticks to play Katamari, but he can't quite play a first-person game yet. At least like, well, you know, he can walk and then he can look and then he can walk, but he can't really do both at the same time. And so he's playing some of it, and then my daughter comes in and goes, "Can I try?" And so she, you know, she takes the controller and starts playing, and she goes, "What button do I hit to make all the dirt glow?" I'm like, "Oh, well, you click in the stick here." "How do I make the soap happen?" I'm like, "Okay, you push up on the D-pad to switch to soap." She's like, "Okay. I'm used to playing this on the keyboard and mouse. I don't really know how this controller thing works." It was like, yeah, fuck yeah, exactly. Yes, let's fucking go. It was fucking amazing. So I don't know, like I'm playing through I'm playing through Powerwash Simulator slowly but surely. I don't know. Like I really enjoy it. And also, it's like I said, for whatever reason, even with a controller. So I played it on the Xbox Ally, the future of Xbox, that PC. I played it on the Xbox Ally X, and it was a little framey. But anyway, like I played a bunch of it with a controller as well. Is my point, and I was like, that was even worse because I was tense and less accurate, and like everything took longer and all of that. So that was all kind of frustrating too. But yeah, it's interesting having her, and this actually it's a weird thing, man, because they sell this stupid keyboard. It is stupid because it's the left half of a keyboard. It's the, what is this? It's the Fury Cube M30HE, I believe, is the exact model number if you want to look that up at home. It is the left half of a keyboard. The rightmost key on it is like T, G, and B. It's got a little space bar, and so it's the half of a keyboard you would use when playing a video game. It doesn't have a Windows key, so, you know, like, that's not going to get in the way. It's got a function key, and they've built in 3 different functions to each button for when you need to hit keys that might be on the right half of a fucking keyboard in an emergency or something. But like, it is a well-made Hall effect keyboard, keys, like, it, you know, like the actuation distances, all that stuff. Like, it's neat. It's not vital, and so I think the whole thing is actually kind of silly. But I wanted to try out a keyboard with Hall effect switches because that just sounded weird. And the idea of like SOCD cleaning on a keyboard is real ridiculous. It's cool. It was like I was like $35 on AliExpress. Like, if it was more money, this is one of those things. Like, I feel like a lot of the 8-bit Do controllers, and especially all of the Gula Kit controllers, it's like one of those things where there are like 40 different places selling them. Like, if you look at AliExpress, there's 30 different shops that have the Gula Kit King Kong 3 Max controller, and all of them are charging a wildly different price. Like, some of them want $85 for it, and some of them want $40 for it. And you're like, are these bootlegs? Are these the real things? I have no fucking idea. Like, Amazon is not much better these days. Like, you know, because they will have a lot of the same controllers and things in stock, and you're never really quite sure if that stuff is real or not. And sometimes the shipping times on Amazon are, you know, not any shorter than, because clearly it's dropship sellers that are just like importing these things from China as well. And so it's taking them forever to get them too. And so you're just like, okay, am I going to order this from like the Key Smash brand on Amazon, where someone in China just like slammed 9 or 10 buttons on a keyboard and said, that's our new company name, and like started started an Amazon seller? Or are you going to go to AliExpress and wonder if it ever will show up at all? And I don't know. Like, there's a lot of items that I feel like fall into that category of just like, I don't know, man. Like I don't know if this stuff is going to be, and a lot of the times the best bet is to go to try to find the official website for the company that actually makes the thing, because sometimes they will link to an Amazon store or an AliExpress store, and you're like, okay, at least this is the one that they recommend. So at least there's that. Like that seems like it's at least like some kind of stamp. But also, that store is charging $30 more than this other one. Maybe I should buy that. Yeah, it's a really these are and the TikTok shop is exactly the same way. These keyboards, I originally saw this keyboard on TikTok, but I basically refused to buy anything from the TikTok shop. And because that seems like a bridge too far. And so like I saw it on TikTok and then went like, okay, let's go to try to find this somewhere else, which has led to dumb situations where like there are people that are like, really trying to promote their product on TikTok. It's like, oh, we got like gum, the gum that's good for your teeth. And I was like, I'm a little curious about that. What's that about? I want to learn more about it, but not on fucking TikTok. And so you got to try to look it up and you're like, okay, like, wait, oh, there's like 20, and this is like gum made in the US by like a small batch, like some dudes making gum. At least that's how they present it. But also there's like 4 or 5 people bootlegging that gum now because it's become so popular that now when you look on Amazon, when you look on some of these other places, because none of these stores give a fuck about whether the stuff is legit or not. Because they don't know. They're like, well, yeah, we could put a bunch of people. We could hire humans to do a job, sure, but like, what would the point of that be? And so like all of these bootleg items are just all over the place, and it's really getting hard to shop for some things. Someone in the chat asked if I was interested in headphones that ship in packages that have anime girls on them. I do have a set of earbuds, a set of IEMs around here somewhere, quite literally, that I bought from Shenzhen Audio, and they're fine. I don't like them. I don't like the way they feel in my ears. They sound okay, but I don't love them. But what's the other insane? I guess it's not insane, but I bought a pair of Ugreen Bluetooth headphones. Bluetooth on Windows 11, I don't know if you know this, but it's actually kind of like restrictive in terms of the codecs and some of the other stuff it uses. But I bought a pair of these Ugreen headphones, and I've been using these at night, like if I'm like watching TV, like watching stuff on the computer or whatever, and the baby is usually asleep in here as well. Like I've been using this so I can still move around because they're wireless. But the latency on them is not great, and and I made the latency worse because I wanted a different codec. So like there's like multiple Bluetooth codecs that are out there. Like there's LDAP, which is a kind of a newer one. There's aptX, which I think is kind of the newest, latest, but even that has like 4 different variants of like low latency or HD or lossless or whatever. But like the idea is like Bluetooth can't handle lossless audio, and I think it would be cool if it did. Or if I had a set of headphones that did that. I don't, but these Ugreens do support LDAP. But Windows 11 doesn't support that codec, and so I had to go download, and it's literally called like alternative Bluetooth driver. An alternative A2DP driver is the name of the software. I had to go download that, buy it from some website for $6, and then now I can use LDAP, the LDAP codec on Windows. You could also buy a different dongle for like $6 or whatever that would support that as well. But like the default Bluetooth, I guess, stack in Windows 11 just doesn't support some of that stuff. So, but even that is not lossless. And also, as soon as I turned on, sorry, not LDAP, LDAC. It is LDAC. And that is a much better audio quality than you get normally, but the latency is way worse. And so like I was occasionally using those headphones to play video games, and now I can't even really do that because the latency has gotten worse with the quality going up. So I don't know. Bluetooth is a disaster anyway. I don't know. So I was thinking about like, oh, well, it'd be cool if, well, I clearly I should get a set of Bluetooth headphones that, and you know, game systems and stuff like this have to deal with this all the time too. But like, I was like, clearly I should get some better headphones that support the better low latency codecs and all of that. And I started looking as like, show me some, you know, aptX lossless or aptX HD Bluetooth headphones, and like the only ones I could find that were like that supported that stuff, because I want to try it out, you know, like I the idea of lower latency and being able to occasionally throw on a wireless set of headphones and still play video games is of value to me. So I kind of want to investigate in that some of that stuff. But the headphones that support those kind of newer codecs are all like audiophile expensive in a way that's just like, oh, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on headphones I'm never going to do that. So that kind of put a stop to that. But I think like a lot of the controllers, like a lot of this 8-bit DOE stuff now, it'll work with Bluetooth, but if you really want to trust it and use it at low latency, they have these 2.4 gigahertz dongles that come with them. And so, you know, like that sort of dongle situation exists in the audio world as well. So that's, you know, there's kind of other ways out of that don't involve Bluetooth. But I was just hoping for something that was a little more universal, because I find myself with an increasing number of wireless devices between these, you know, handheld PCs and the Switch 2 and, you know, like all this other stuff. So I was like, oh, that might be neat to kind of investigate into this sort of stuff. But whatever, it's never going to replace a good set of wired headphones anyway, especially with all the audio stuff I have to rig up to record shows and podcasts and all of that. Like, I literally could not use those headphones for that purpose. In addition to Powerwash Simulator, I have you seen Q Up yet? That's the letter Q hyphen up. It is the ultimate esport. It is from the studio that brought you, what's the name of that word game? That brought you Babel Royale, the kind of Scrabble battle royale game. Q Up is a game about flipping coins, much like Unfair Flips, but not at all like Unfair Flips, though it is also unfair in its own way. It is a class-based coin flipping game that purports itself to be multiplayer, and I don't know that I agree with that. I can't tell. Like it has matchmaking times, and it has but in all of that, but I think it is faking certain amounts of it, because ultimately it's just doing coin flips, and those don't need to be synchronized across players. So you can form a party in this game and go and flip coins and whatever. But like that, I guess that's only part of the story. And there is a story. It is a story about a company trying to make the ultimate esports game by just reducing it to pure randomness and pure 50-50, you know, like you get emails as you play from the company that makes the game. And, you know, there's a lot of really silly, and really, there's a lot of really funny writing in this inside of Q Up. But like when you queue up for a match of Q Up, it's got all this. It's a lot of over the top music and presentation for what is ultimately a coin flipping. It also has a really elaborate skill tree system, because you're gaining XP and you're ranking up and going through the different esports leagues. And so you are getting on this skill tree, and all the skill trees are class based. So I'm playing as the esports pro, but there's also a character that's a gambler. There's a medic. You unlock some additional characters. There's like a streamer character, and they all kind of have different core abilities for this coin flipping game. The other thing they kind of did is when you unlock additional skills and additional skill points, it basically is on a grid, and you can move certain things around on that grid to kind of exploit the rules of the items and the rules of the skills that you're unlocking. And so you know how in Nubby's Number Factory, when you will unlock abilities that will cause your abilities to trigger more frequently, and so part of it is setting up this cascading effect of fucking insane shit and using the rules of it, so you get this, like, you know, kind of, it is constantly going ping, 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 ping. It's that. It's that setup. And so you have this grid, and you can drop some of your skills. You can move around on the grid. Some of them you cannot. And they all have different trigger conditions. So some will only trigger when your side wins. So if you, and the coin is either, it's not heads or tails, it's Q or it's up. And so it'll be like, oh, if it lands on Q, then that triggers this item. This item triggers on flip. So no matter what happens, it's going to be triggered. This one's, if you lose, it will trigger. You will have things where, like, okay, it will trigger once and then it will rotate. And it's, well, okay. So my point, I guess I should back up a little bit here. When things trigger, those things will have inherent effects that will determine how many points or how much XP you get at the end of a flip. Win or lose, this is still tabulated. All of your things will still proc or not proc depending on the rules, and a number will be formed. Sometimes that number is negative, and that will drag you down. You will go from Platinum League down to Gold League, all the way down to Bronze, or back up again. I am currently in Diamond League. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Feeling pretty good about being in Diamond 1. You will also gain XP, which is a constant flow of positive number, you know, to unlock more skills and upgrades and whatever. You also will earn gold. Gold is used between matches to buy items, and so you have an item loadout that will also influence, like, oh, okay, if it lands on Q, then you get a +8 to your multiplier, and so you're gaining a multiplier and you're gaining the number, which is also called Q. And so you're gaining Q or losing Q, and the multiplier is going. So sometimes you'll have a negative number because you lost and all of your things procced and it didn't dig you out of the negative hole. And so you will then, like, your multiplier might go nuts. And so suddenly it's multiplying -1 million times 150. And you're like, oh shit, I just lost like 3 levels. Like, I just sucked down to like Gold 3 instead of Diamond 1 or Platinum 3 or, you know, whatever. And so, like, the swings are ridiculous, but there's kind of a right answer to it, because as you're unlocking things, you're going, okay, this item, if I upgrade it, means on flip, any item I put around it on the grid will trigger every time it flips. Or this item rotates, so it will trigger on flip, but then it will rotate. It will trigger the space north of it on flip, but then it will rotate, and next time it will trigger this one instead, and this one instead. And so there is an insane amount of optimization to do, like, to figure out what is the exact right way to plop these things down on this grid, to figure out not only, like, okay, how do I maximize my wins, but also how do I minimize my losses? Because you might lose, and if your loadout is built in a certain way, it might still trigger in just the right way to where you are still technically gaining points personally, even as the team is losing. It's fucking ridiculous. But it's really funny. And it is like just enough to, like, okay, like, I really want to tweak this and see if this will work better. And, you know, oh, can I move this over here? Okay, I got another upgrade point. Can I put it in here? You can look at other players and see what their item loadout is and go, like, okay, well, they're using 9 of these XP boosters and they're using the shrug emoji. I'm not even sure what this does, but, like, but I should probably get one of those. And so there's, like, a ridiculous amount of things to configure and, like, worry about in the confines of this motherfucking coin flipping game. It's fucking awesome. it is so ridiculous. Because again, it has this pomp and circumstance and a fake news feed of of pro players and what they're doing, and there's a lot of really silly shit in this that you should at least go check out video of it in action. And then it's funny, it has a lot of comedy that kind of comes from your email inbox, where it'll one of the first, and I at first I didn't click it, but then I needed the gems. You also gain gems that you use to unlock kind of permanent upgrades, like, oh, let me equip more items at the same time, or let me have bigger stacks of items, or let me unlock a larger store, or whatever. And so the first time, and this is why I think a lot of it is rigged and fake on purpose, right? And I do think that I honestly can't tell if it really is communicating online at all, if there are ever any real players in this, or if everything is totally faked. I don't have an answer to how it is engineered or built or anything like that. But basically, a time will come when you lose 3-0. Right. And it feels like that moment is sort of engineered story wise a little bit, where, the coin will flip 3 times. You will lose all 3 times, and you'll go back to the main, and you're fucking sent back to the fucking lobby. And you'll get an email saying oh, well, this is not the intent of our quantum algorithm and all this other stuff. And so as a gift, here, please accept 10 crystals. But there is fine print at the bottom of the email that says, upon accepting these 10 crystals, basically you become an employee of the company. And so I read that and went oh, well, I'm not going to click that. And so for days, I was not getting any of the free crystals that were coming in my mail, because they all were attached to, becoming an employee of the company who makes the game. And then I reached a point where I was like, man, I really need 50 crystals right fucking now. I need to buy this thing. I can't, I'm stuck. I need to buy this item right now. I don't have time. I don't have the patience to grind it out and wait for these crystals to come. And so I accepted the offer, and then immediately you start getting emails like you're an employee of the company. It's really, it's fucking funny. But yeah, there are some online hooks to it for sure, but the pace of the game doesn't change, even though you can kind of hold it on a screen and not advance it to the next flip. And there's an upgrade you can unlock that actually speeds the game up. And so having different players seeing flips at different speeds or whatever makes me think that even in situations, because you can't chat, there's no, even in situations where you are being matched against real players, I assume it is just immediately sending every player that matches the complete rundown of all the flips, and then no permanent connection is made. It just randomly generates it, sends it to the 6 player, 8 players or whatever, and then probably drops, and everyone plays at their own pace, and then match makes again or whatever. But I'm guessing that's how it's built. But you can also, you can party up with people on your friends list and all of that stuff. So it's Queue Up is really fascinating. And if you are into that specific loadout optimization shit that Nubby's Number Factory does, it's not, I would not say this game is like Nubby's Number Factory per se, but specifically if the way you optimize your loadouts and your runs in that game, if that really speaks to you, this is a hypercharged, fucking ridiculous, over the top version of that. And when you get it right, everything goes ping and all the numbers happen, and you're like, whoa, like a slot machine. Whether that's good or bad is up for debate. Whether the dopamine rush from the fake slot machine is a good thing or a bad thing is up for debate, he says. But yes, either way, Queue Up is really cool. Good trend of Deceptive games lately between Queue Up and some other stuff. Let's take another break here. We'll come back. We'll talk about Lumines after this. Running a small business can be overwhelming. There are so many different things that you constantly have to tackle, from, just taxes to logos to license, whatever other stuff you've got going on. It all adds up real fast. And so if you're trying to sell stuff online, it's nice to take some of the things out of that chain to make it easier for you to set up and sell things. And that's why you need to take a look at Shopify. Finding that right tool not only helps you out, but it can be such a game changer. And for millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. And like 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands that are just getting started. They've got a design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates, so you can get up and running super fast, super easy. You can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. You can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. Yeah, that's right. They can help you manage inventory. So if you've got like a physical location, like the trunk of your car or a pop-up shop or just a straight-up storefront, and you're selling online, Shopify can sit in the middle of all that and make sure that you're not overselling in one place and so you don't have enough stock to cover the other. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything: international shipping, processing, returns, and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Jeff. Go to shopify.com/Jeff. That's shopify.com/Jeff. Lumines Arise is out today. It's good. You should check that out. That's really all I have to say. They made another Lumines. It's really good. It's very pretty. The soundtrack is nice. Like, I think there was some worries. I know there was a part of me who was like, there's a part of me that never, like, it's hard to imagine a Lumines game that doesn't have Shine in it. But here we are yet again. But there was like the soundtrack is really good, and there was no Shinichi Osawa is not on it, but like it has a lot of great music in it. That music, if you're not familiar with Lumines, the music gets tied to individual skins. Lumines is a puzzle game where you drop cubes into a well. There are two different colors on the cubes, basically we'll call it like a light and a dark. And the cubes could be all light, all dark, or any combination of it otherwise. And you drop those into a pit, and you try to make squares of the same color. And as you make those squares, you can build onto them and make them even bigger. A timeline sweeps across the screen in time with the music, and the timeline sweeps away the squares you have completed, which makes room for more blocks to be dropped. That's the basics of it. Music changes things quite a bit. Slower songs might have a slower timeline, and so it's easier to make big combos, but also means it takes longer for things to be cleared from your pit. A fast timeline would, make it harder to have kind of larger combos in that level. But as you go through the game, it will go from one skin to the next, and so the songs will change, the graphics will change pretty dramatically, and you will move forward at maybe an entirely different tempo. This has been the blueprint for Lumines since it debuted on the PSP. I think Lumines for the PSP is still that platform's defining game. They launched with the best game for the system, and the PSP was never better. That's not to say the PSP was bad per se, but Lumines is that damn good. If you have not played Lumines, but you have played the Tetris Effect, you should know that basically what the Tetris effect did was take a lot of that skin stuff and graphical change stuff from Lumines and bring it into Tetris. And so now, in a weird way, they are bringing all of that back with the same style of VR support, and you're playing the games your games in chunks of 4 skins instead of trying to play through all of them and see how far you can go. You will unlock those skins as you go. You will get graded for every chunk of 4 skins you play, and so on. They've got an online mode here with competitive play, which is fine. I have never been especially interested in competitive Lumines. It has never been the draw for me, but it has been perfectly enjoyable with what I've played so far. But it's not really why I'm there. Some of the skins can be dramatic, and some of the skins can really, I think, be disruptive to the game, which is fine, because it's not every single skin in the game. But there's one where it's you have like vegetables, so it'd be like broccoli and tomatoes, and or apples, and but as you're kind of completing these foods, when the timeline sweeps across them, they kind of burst out in front of you in your direction and obscure some of the puzzle behind it. And I find that kind of frustrating. The red-green on that level also in particular, I find being colorblind, I found that one specifically to be a little tricky. And so like having those two things combined, I am really sucking shit at Lumines in a way that I didn't think was possible after all the years I've spent playing Lumines, but I am having trouble clearing the second set of levels in normal mode. And that's frustrating, but it's been generally fine. It's got you're kind of unlocking customized things for your character. They did the prefix suffix thing that hot games like Diablo and The First Descendant do to let you kind of choose your title, and basically every 300 points you earn in that currency, you can go kind of basically pull a lever on a slot machine and unlock a new customization item, a background, a character piece, or kind of whatever, and that stuff's fine. It's very stylish. I have not really spent much time with the VR stuff just because I haven't really been in a position to do it. But it does have VR support. It is on PlayStation and Steam, and so it's on PS5 for you PSVR 2 user. And then whatever you're using to do VR games on Steam these days, that should work. It also plays pretty well. Like the VR stuff is cool because Tetris Effect in VR was a really kind of transcendent experience, and I think Lumines is relatively similar in that regard. It's maybe a little less impressive because the Tetris Effect exists, right? And so you know what they're doing. You sit down and play it. If you have when you sat down to play Tetris Effect, you went like, oh, you did the Lumines thing to Tetris. That's really smart. Like it's a very easy description if you're familiar with the games, right? And this one as well. You go like, oh, okay, yeah, you're pretty much doing now you're doing the Tetris Effect VR thing and bringing it back to, okay, yeah, got it. That doesn't mean it's any less effective. It's just that it is inherently less surprising, I suppose. The cool thing about this is that it runs pretty well on handhelds. I have not tried it on. Well, I guess I've only tried it on the Ally. I have not tried it on an actual Steam Deck, but it is Steam Deck verified. I found that it ran fine on the Ally for the most part. They recommend a couple of settings, like because of the size of the pit on default screens, there are settings you can change to make the gameplay part of it a little bigger, which for a smaller screen is handy. And so there are a few changes you can make there to kind of optimize the experience for a handheld. But in terms of it running well or not running well, yeah, it runs fine. And that to me is the thing that a Lumines game needs to do. Given its roots and its origins as the PSP's definitive game, that to me is way more interesting right now than the VR stuff is. And so that's been nice. On top of that, it's out today. It's a fantastic puzzle game. I think if you are actively doing things in VR still, if your VR headset, if you own one and it's not covered in like the thickest layer of dust imaginable, I feel like getting this is a super no-brainer. and you know, because the VR stuff is neat, but also, you know, it stands on its own just fine as well. You don't necessarily need you in fact you definitely do not need to have a VR headset to enjoy Lumines Arise. Period. Like that's it. It does not require it in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, Joker in the chat says will be my first time using my PSVR 2 in like 2 years. Yeah. I am not sure where my PSVR 2 is. I put it all back in its box. It must be in the garage somewhere. I don't know. Like I boxed it up after launch and went like, okay, cool. I have a Quest 3, which I can use on the PC, you know, wirelessly tethered to do that stuff, and that works well enough. But I also don't do that a lot either. So yeah. Also, I also played, speaking of deceptive video games, I played It Takes a War, which is on PC, and it is fake old Counter-Strike, I guess, is maybe the... There's two conversations we could have about this. We could have the conversation where I tiptoe around a lot of this and don't tell you much about it, or I could tell you the here's what this game really is version of it. But I think I'm probably going to try and split the difference ever so slightly, because it's apparent from looking at it that it is not just a multiplayer shooter that looks like bad old Counter-Strike. But when you look at it, it is like this kind of 1.6 era Counter-Strike tactical shooter, and that is how they present it completely, with an occasional wink and nod to the idea that there's something else going on here in the trailer and in some of the writing around it. It is it's a fake multiplayer game. It is a story-based experience. It is not especially horror-driven, but it does have some moments that are meant to perhaps freak you out a little bit. And so it plays around with... basically, the idea is that you are a first-time player in this game, and they contrive a reason. They say, like, oh, well, you can't use voice chat until your second match. We do that to combat spammers. And so you are not able to use voice chat. And so the idea is that you jump into a game of this Counter-Strike style shooter where everyone else is talking and you cannot, and a story unfolds. And it goes places, and it has, I think, a really good, you know, interesting kind of message and story to it overall that I found to be pretty fascinating. It's also a game that does not overstay its welcome. I finished It Takes a War in about 45 minutes, which is about exactly how long it should be. I think in terms of the story that is being told and how it is told and so on, I think that is the right length for this. And so you are playing a Counter-Strike style tactical shooter as this story is unfolding, and the story kind of bleeds into and out of the game, and you know, and it kind of gets to where it's going. It is a really cool idea. It tries to do it kind of gets out over its skis a couple of times. Like there's some things that it tries to do, and it's unfortunate, because if this had worked, it would have been a really good late game reveal. But some technical thing that it was trying to pull off that it didn't tip its hand on at the beginning of the game, because if it did, you could have configured it all properly and known that it would have worked and all of that sort of stuff before going and playing. But because it doesn't tip its hand there to make sure that it doesn't work, there is a chance that you get to this moment and there's nothing there because the technical thing failed. And that's what happened to me. I guess I'm not going to get any more specific than that about it. but that's that was a little frustrating. But you see what they're going for, and you go, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I see what would have been here had this worked, and that would have been funny. And it has a story, like you're listening to these characters who are friends kind of tell their story as they go. And I think that it is an interesting, entertaining thing. It's one of those games that people are saying like, don't read anything about it and just go play it. And I think that's a tell in and of itself in so far as I think everything I have just told you just now is stuff you could pretty much infer pretty easily here. When someone tells you don't read anything about it, like it's like, oh, so it's not just a Counter-Strike ripoff. Okay, I gotcha. And so I don't feel like I'm doing the game a disservice or doing you a disservice here by just alerting you to the basic nature of it, because I think that's relatively apparent in the way that it gets discussed and so on and so forth. It's neat. I'm glad I played it. I think that it tries to tell its story, and I don't think it is wholly successful in conveying its message, or the kind of the couple of messages it feels like it's kind of circling around as you go. But I like the way the story is told. It's got a nice song over the end credits. It's 45 minutes long. It's like $5. It's $5.39 right now. I think if that's the sort of game that sounds appealing to you, then you already know that it's something that you probably want to look at. And so that is It Takes a War. I think it's clever. It's clever, and I think it's an interesting way to tell the story it's trying to tell, and so on and so forth. So yeah. At bare minimum, I think the trailer is really funny because they just fucking found like a guy who is playing the role of like esports streamer dipshit like exceptionally well. And the trailer is a pretty kind of straight-faced, like, take a look at this tactical shooter thing, that I think is pretty well done. And yeah, $5, I guess $6 when it is no longer, on sale. But an enjoyable little thing. How are people feeling about Arc Raiders these days? I'm mostly asking the live chat who is here with me. It's been interesting watching that game post-release. Like, people still seem like they're very into it. It feels like there is maybe a kind of schism happening in terms of player desire. Around the PvP aspect of it and the player attitude aspect of it, and like that has been interesting. It feels like there's a part of this that is the people that stream the game are very much wanting the game to be very combative, and they are oftentimes wanting it to be sweatier, if you will, more PvP oriented, and it feels like there is a much kinder community evolving right now that is, players helping each other and helping each other out there against kind of the the CPU enemies and whatever, and not just gunning each other down. And that's been really interesting because you have people that are just like coming at it from a from an almost like an esports perspective, and people going like, oh, they need to do more tournament stuff, or more, they need a ranked mode, they need a this, and like trying to approach it in a way that's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's so not this game in any way, shape, or form. And it's interesting watching that. That will probably eventually be a struggle that game has, that I feel like the people who want the ranked thing will probably eventually win, because they will be the people who continue playing it, where the people playing the game casually will probably eventually move on to another game. And especially if the more aggressive players show up and shoot a bunch of players who are trying to not get into fights, I think you will end up with a situation where they will drive away at least some of those players. It's been pretty successful in terms of player count on Steam. It's been, let's say, somewhere in the 300,000 range. It's been maybe just under Battlefield a lot of the time. I think they've said they sold about 4 million copies thus far. I think that's across all platforms. That's not just a PC number. But it seems like it's been doing well in terms of a game like this fitting the moment. Of course, there's also the AI conversation happening around it, which I have not spent a ton of time with the game, so it's not immediately clear to me which parts of the game still have AI generated voices or whatever in them. I know that they have a disclosure that says that they used some of that stuff during development and replaced, but it's human ingenuity, but I don't know if it's like, is it, someone, Fat Scout in chat saying it's all the NPCs, so like every single voice. That's kind of a weird way to go with it. Like I could see if they wanted to try to build a case, which I don't think is necessarily like a great case, but I think if they wanted to build a case where like, oh, we did all of our, like we did record a ton of real lines from these real voice actors, but also we licensed their voices for use in what is an evolving game, and as such, we're going to pay these people to use AI generate. Like there's probably some way to carve that in a way that doesn't feel like a nightmare or whatever. But like, but yeah, I don't know exactly how far they're going on that stuff. I haven't spent a ton of time listening to that. If it's not just pings or whatever. But yeah, I don't know what their exact thing is here. Like Tim Sweeney has waded into the middle of this as well. And so like, oh, but the AI is good, which I don't think is true or right. But it's interesting to watch kind of, they went through some of this stuff with the finals, and as much as people complained about the finals, I don't know that it necessarily swayed the end result super far. I think they did make some changes there, but it's interesting to see them just kind of like trudge on and keep using this stuff that it doesn't really seem like they need. I could see, again, if they wanted to build a case, you could say, hey, this is a live service game we're going to update for years to come, and there's going to be areas that, like, you're going to want to ping an area and say, let's go over here, and we want to have voice lines that say the name of that thing, and we would rather not have to keep these voice actors coming back and recording new lines every 6 months or whatever, in case they're not available or whatever. That, there's kind of like that. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think that case is, again, if they are using real people's voices and they are paying them for that, then they're paying them for that, right? So I don't know. I haven't, playing alone, I'm not pinging anything in the environment ever. So I think that's where a lot of the I don't know. There's not a lot of dialogue in that game. So I guess I haven't really heard, a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's a bummer. Like it's the sort of thing that you look at and go like, it seems really dumb to, like, for a game that was like, people were pretty big on and pretty interested in, and like maybe their arguments back would be, actually the game's doing just fine, so we don't have to care. Maybe that's their position. I don't really know, but like, it seems like it would be very easy for them to just sidestep this part of their workflow or whatever, and just go like, actually get those guys back in here and let's just record the voice dialogue, so that we don't have to like deal with this post-launch, like let's just get this done. and just do it, so we don't have to, like, it's a weird distraction away from the game itself that this is happening. So it's weird that they just kind of trudged into it all over again, because if voice actors in story-driven games, whatever, like, that stuff can get expensive, and I'm sure that, like, for the years of updates or whatever, that they would have to bring people back or whatever, but, like, I don't, yeah, that can't be as expensive as the hassle, or that's not so much of a cost saving, like, again, like what's the actual benefit here? What is the cost benefit analysis on this, where you're just like, what? Okay, like, this isn't, again, there's not that much voice in this game. Like, you're probably not saving that much money, and the game is popular enough that you can certainly afford to do it the right way. So why are we doing this? Why are you fucking doing this? Seems like a fucking dumb move, top to bottom, man. I don't know. Let's take one more break. We'll get into the news after this. I think most of us know that we need to kind of take control of our finances and make sure we know where the money is coming from and going, but it's hard to know where to start. Rocket Money gives you the clarity and confidence to take that first step, helping you cut wasteful spending and take meaningful action toward your financial goals. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It does that by showing all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions that you might have forgot about. So if you see a subscription that you no longer want, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. Yes, that's right. When it comes to situations like subscriptions, or in some cases, bills that they look at and go like, hey, we think that maybe you're paying a little too much for this service, Rocket Money can go out on your behalf and take care of that for you in a lot of cases. How it works is, you'll kind of say like, oh, give them some information about the account and hey, this is the thing I want you to cancel, and they will go out and operate on your behalf to cancel those subscriptions or to lower those bills. I've had situations with like satellite radio and phone service where someone from Rocket Money went out and contacted the company and said, what is this, a shakedown? What are you doing, charging this much money for phone? And they went, okay, yeah, you're right. And Rocket Money came back and said, like, hey, we just saved you like, $150, or we saved you, like $200 a year, like on this sort of stuff. It's awesome. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including bill due dates and paydays, in a way that's very easy to digest. You can even automatically create custom budgets that are kind of based on your past spending. So if you got like a goal that you like to save for, Rocket Money can analyze your accounts and figure out like, oh, what's the best time each month to put a little extra money aside and all of that. They'll send you an alert if your bills increase in price, if there's weird activity on your accounts, if you're close to going over your budget, and even if you're doing a good job. It's cool. Rocket Money has saved users over $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JeffG today. That's rocketmoney.com/JeffG. rocketmoney.com/JeffG. It's 11:11. Must be time for the news. It's 11:11 on 11:11. Make a wish. Oh, well, it's 11:12 now. Too late. Never mind. Today sits directly in between the 5-year anniversaries of the launch of the Xbox Series X, as well as the PlayStation 5. 5 years ago yesterday, the Xbox was released, and 5 years ago tomorrow was the release date of the PlayStation 5. Here we are. It's really wild to think about just how much things have changed in the video game business over these last 5 years. Obviously, 5 years ago, we were, 6 months into a pandemic, and 5 years ago, we were still wiping down groceries. There was I don't think anyone was sure how stuff was going to go at that point, and the launch of the new consoles and you know, the immediate disappearance, especially of the PlayStation 5 from store shelves, and the scalping, and like, that's what I always remember about the launch of these things, is that, you know, it was very hard to get them. The Xbox was in slightly better supply at launch, but those were definitely going to, and the PlayStation 5 became a ghost. Like, it was impossible to find one. I had, at one point in my house, I had two of each, and I had to ship them across the country to the New York folks, and shipped an Xbox and a PlayStation out there. Should have just kept them and sold them. That's stupid. Oh well. It's an interesting, you know, like the last 5 years have been so transformative in so many aspects of just like fucking society, right? I mean, you know, the launch of these platforms is wrapped up in so much shit, and the economic policies that we're dealing with today, you know, like there's just a lot of stuff, you know, I think is rooted in things that happened 5 years ago. So much of what's happening now still feels like a reaction to, or, you know, in a reaction, you know, a perceived correction, but an actual extreme overcorrection, or what have you. Like, so many of the things that are happening right now in video games in particular, whether it's the price of the consoles or the extreme turmoil around staying employed in this business, you know, you can trace all of that back to the pandemic. You know, Nintendo never actually, I just discovered this relatively recently. Everyone went and worked from home, right? Nintendo never actually officially allowed that for developers. Like, you were supposed to keep your Switch dev kits under lock and key at all times. They were supposed to stay on the premises. Like, there was just a ton of stuff along those lines, and that Nintendo never actually said, okay, here's you know, we understand that this is going to change, and so, like, they never actually had a policy change around any of that shit. Which is really crazy. I think the other hardware manufacturers did, but when I got my Xbox from Microsoft, when they sent them out, we got consoles a week or two ahead of launch. Like, the NDA that we had to sign with Xbox was stuff like you can't have it in a room with an open window, because if people walk by and see it, like, it was like the NDA was very specific around, like, it needs to be in a closed room. It needs to be, you know, no windows that are, you know, exposed to the world. It was very specific, because, you know, like, normally you're sending those that sort of stuff to people in office buildings, you know, except for freelancers that are getting consoles and whatever. And then, you know, there definitely were cases where they had to give them out in weird ways to get them to people in those sorts of situations. But it was the first time that I had to get consoles shipped to my house for stuff. And everyone was so fucking skittish about it, because, like, okay, we're sending out PlayStation 5s. Are you going to be there on this day to get it? And, like, yeah, but, you know, I'm not fucking going anywhere. Like, I'm fucking staying in this fucking house. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it was it just, even getting those things in hand was really interesting. And it was funny, because when we got consoles, there was not a lot to do with them pre-release. It was on the Microsoft side, the backwards compatibility stuff hadn't rolled out in full yet, and so the technical benefits that you might have seen at launch weren't quite in place, and so older games wouldn't quite run. In a lot of cases, their smart delivery stuff, like the Xbox Series X version of some games, were not available yet. And so for the longest time, I think, like, one of the only games to play was like Forza. It was like Forza Horizon 4, I guess, right? They did an Xbox Series X version of that, and I think that was one of the first things that was technically ready and would download and go. But, like, I was thinking about it, like, what is the what is the defining game of the Xbox Series X launch specifically? Like, I pulled up a list of, like, IGN has a news story from 2020 basically saying, like, here are all the games that, you know, that work on Xbox, that are Xbox Series X specific, meaning games that received generation specific updates to whether, so for older games that means games that got upgrades, or for brand new games that were shipping on that day, which was like a really low number. It's Yakuza Like a Dragon, right? Is that the, because Gears was available elsewhere already. Like, Gears Tactics is technically an Xbox Series X launch game if you want to broaden the definition of launch game, because it got an Xbox Series X upgrade at launch. I don't think of it that way, but like, yeah, Gears 5 was already out and it got some kind of upgrade. But like, in terms of like brand new games that were shipping at that time, it was like, there was the rally racing game, Dirt 5. I think Dirt 5 was brand new. Devil May Cry, DMC5, that was brand new on those platforms. But like, and Yakuza Like a Dragon, if I remember right, like that was the, or was that a little bit after? Did that not come out right alongside? Let's see. Let me look it up here. Yeah, November 10th, 2020 is when Yakuza Like a Dragon hit. So yeah, that was right there for launch. And I remember that being kind of the defining, insofar as there was no defining game. You know, Halo at one point was supposed to be a launch game that would not hit for like another full year or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting list. And there was some stuff like, you know, because Xbox, the benefit on the Xbox side that they were talking a lot about was this idea of this smart upgrade that would automatically upgrade you to the Xbox Series X version of the game. And then there was this weird rush of like, wait a minute, are third parties going to go for this? And then some did, some didn't. Like Borderlands received an update of some kind. And then NBA 2K21, they only did free upgrades for people that bought the expensive version of the game. The Mamba Forever Edition. Because that's 2K for you. Weird that they would do that, but not for Borderlands, but I guess, you know, different circumstances. And so there was like I think people were really curious, like really uncertain about that whole thing for a while, because a lot of, you know, like prices were going up. There was like a lot of stuff happening all at once where people were like, wait a minute, like, am I going to be able to update for free? And then on the PlayStation side, they were trying to go like, oh, we're going to do these $10 updates and we're going to stop doing these okay, they're free updates, but now they're going to be $10. Oh wait, this one's not going to be $10, but after this one, it's going to all be, you know, and they were trying to get people to pay higher prices to update to PlayStation 5 versions of games, because the PS5 handled that stuff dramatically differently than I strongly prefer, like from an engineering, like just an ease of use thing. I think that the way that the Xbox handled cross-generational stuff is really smart. You know, when it works, you know, there was a few instances over the years, I think, where like something funky would happen and, you know, like it wouldn't quite go the way you would expect. But in a general sense, I think that's just a friendlier way for players. Whereas on the PlayStation side, I think there's still this element, you know, like Call of Duty is going to come out and they're still going to go like, this is our cross-gen bundle. And that'll happen on Xbox as well, I think, because I think you have to buy the expensive version of that to get, you know, whatever. They did some kind of split there. Maybe they don't now that is anyway. But like that was always a lot of weird stuff. The store, the PlayStation Store, was not immediately clear about the differentiation between PS4 games and PS5 games. And so it was very easy to buy a game and then fuck up and download the PS4 version. They've since overhauled that whole thing. The purchase to download flow is now much more clear about downloading the PS5 version of a game. Though it is still kind of awkward. That is still not a perfect, a perfected kind of thing on PS5. It's a really weird. It was such a strange launch. I think that's the other thing. And covering it was weird because I was just like, what games am I even supposed to fucking play? Like, none of them are ready yet on Xbox. Nothing has gotten the upgrades have not shipped in time to do anything with. Like, it's a pandemic. Everyone's fucking figuring out how to work from home. Everything's delayed. Nothing's happened. Like, it was just really like when I was supposed to sit around here and play Bright Memory 1.0. No, come on. Like it was just a very bizarre launch for both of these devices. And getting them early was also a really weird experience too, because like I said, you know, like the games weren't ready and the patches were hitting very erratically, and we were continually waiting for an update. They were going to push some firmware update, and on the other side of that, we would start seeing a lot more games that, you know, took advantage of the Xbox Series X. And so for the longest time, I just, you know, and for the longest time, I mean like 4, 5, 7 days, like a week, around a week, probably. It was this feeling of just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this thing right now. Like, there's not much to do with it. When the PlayStation showed up, and this is actually relatively par for the course for getting PlayStation hardware early. But when the PlayStation came in, it did not have the right firmware on it. And so it couldn't access any online anything. And so we got it. And I think the PlayStation 5, pretty much all we could do with it is play like Astro Bot, which was something like, at least that was a fucking game, you know, and like a couple of other games that they had sent out. It's like, what on the PlayStation, there was like Godfall. Miles Morales. So like, yeah, there was, and Watch Dogs Legion was launching on both of those consoles, right? Demon Souls, of course, that Sackboy game. Ugh. Yeah, Godfall. But Astrobot, I think, was like, you know, you could at least play that, and I ended up playing a chunk of that, and I ended up playing all of that, and yeah, like Miles Morales, I guess, and I played Devil May Cry on a PlayStation. That's what Capcom sent the PlayStation version of that, so I ended up playing that there. But even there, it you know, like looking at this PS5 launch lineup, it's not it was not a great, that was not an amazing list either. It's Astro's, Demon Souls, Spider-Man Remastered, Miles Morales, and Sackboy from first party. And then third party, like Borderlands 3 got next gen updates for both consoles. And so that actually eventually led to me finishing Borderlands 3 because I just wanted to play fucking something on these new devices. And like checking out No Man's Sky or something like that. Like this, it was not a, I really don't feel like these were very good launches. You know, we think back, and you know, it was, again, it was some months into a pandemic, and like it was a very weird, like none of that stuff felt real. It just felt like, okay, I'm waiting for this thing to, and maybe that's why it still feels like sometimes that we're in a waiting period for these consoles. Like, when they get some games on them, that'll be something. I should go back and play Godfall. They eventually like backported. They ported Godfall to like PS4 at some point because they were, you know, they made all this big deal about Godfall and how it's like, oh, this next generation video. It's a dumb, Godfall's not a good game. And then they eventually like did a version of it for PS4, which I thought was very funny. considering how much time they spent talking about how next gen it was or whatever. But man, just go back and play Godfall now. I bet that would be kind of a trip. And then in the years that followed, I think that, like Microsoft felt like they were in a relatively good place with the rollout of this console. Like it felt like they were correcting the mistakes of the Xbox One, and they were delivering a device that like was behind in the conversation. But, having both devices side by side, there was really a feeling of like, oh man, these seem like the same. The only differing point really felt like the load times on PS5, because they had done a better job of marketing the PS5 as like, look at these great load times. Look at how fast these games load. And like, so, you had a few early examples of like games that loaded really quick. They had those handful of games that did the thing where if you launched them from the activity panel, it would like immediately snap you into your save and go right to where you were. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. And then like 2 games supported it, like, and no one else did. So it ended up just being basically identical to an Xbox Series X, in pretty much all of the ways that mattered, and so they never felt less differentiated. We talk about the differences like, oh, the hard drive here or the smart delivery there. And those are like meaningful differences kind of once you're down the rabbit hole a little bit. But on the surface, like it just felt like, oh, they're shipping the same thing. And the differences are not going to matter the way they did with the launch of the PS4 and the Xbox One. Like that was a bloodbath for all the wrong reasons. But, but a lot of those early Xbox One games did not run in a proper resolution, like that's just the fact of the matter. And so it was easy to look at it and go like, oh, well, this is Microsoft fixing all of the dumb shit they ran into over the course of the Xbox One. This thing is right there. It's on par. They're doing the smart delivery thing. Like it seems like they've got at least as many games as the other guys had. Like, like, okay, this all makes sense. And then to look at like that moment 5 years ago, and then fast forward to now, where the Xbox Series X hardware, feels increasingly like an afterthought in this generation. Like you just kind of look at it and go like, man, it really, the last 5 years were not kind to the Xbox game studios. And some of that I think is, pandemic related, and how can you ship games and games getting delayed and games not coming together and what have you. But yeah, just the last 5 years have been really interesting. I think Sony has been better at just kind of getting through it. Sony has had its off years. Like I don't think it's funny, because I think that, like it's a silly thing to say in one regard, because Ghost of Yotei is such a great game. But it's not been an astounding year for PlayStation first party, other than the part where they maybe have the game of the year, other than the part where Ghost of Yotei is maybe is perhaps going to win some game of the year awards at the end of the year. There is sort of a, like just in terms of games shipped and the flow of software, like Sony feels off this year in the same way that Microsoft maybe did the year prior. Like Microsoft took some years to get to the point where they were finally shipping some goddamn video games, and now they have been at least on a decent clip there. And now Sony is kind of feeling the effects of like, oh yeah, we just, things broke differently for the two companies, I guess. Sony's games were not held back as much. Sony's games ended up shipping, but they were not always quick to replace those in the pipeline with new stuff. And so maybe some of the newer ideas have been slower to come together over these last couple of years here, because they feel like they have slowed down. I don't think that's meaningful. I think that they still all get the third party stuff, and Sony still gets some kind of de facto exclusives, just because support for the Xbox is dicey in some parts of the world, and all of that stuff. So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, because I think they both have different strengths or weaknesses. but it's not that different. Which again, I see why people would think that is maybe a weird thing to say when you consider that Sony is out there talking about how many PlayStation 5s they're selling and how well it's selling and everything. But like, separate from the sales story, the flow of software doesn't feel like it's quite there. But hardware wise, they're basically on track with the PlayStation 4. Hardware wise, I think someone crunched the numbers and realized that the PlayStation 5 has now outsold every generation of Xbox, not combined, but every individual generation of Xbox. The PS5 has outsold all those, which that's something, I guess. It's like a weird comparison to make, but there you go. I don't know. There's a couple interesting tidbits that have come out of Sony's earnings report here. They kind of got out and talked a little bit about where things were for them overall. Helldivers 2 came up because Helldivers was released on Xbox, and from the looks of things here, that Xbox version of Helldivers 2 actually did quite well. And on top of that, helped kind of bring the game back into the conversation months after its release, and probably helped with engagement on PC and PlayStation as well. And so that's been a fascinating, hey, here's a Sony published game on Xbox, blah blah blah. Like actually turning out to work out really well. This is something that there's a quote that Windows Central has from the Q2 fiscal year 2025 report. It says Helldivers 2, which was also released for Xbox in August of this year, is doing extremely well, not only attracting new users on Xbox, but also seeing increased engagement from existing users on PS5 and PC. This resulted in a significant increase in sales of the title year on year. So, like, Helldivers has done really well for them, and they are attributing part of that to the game releasing on Xbox. They are also talking specifically about Bungie, and they are taking a hit to their kind of forecasts because they're saying, like, yeah, Bungie is not doing what when we forecast the amount of money that Bungie would make when we were buying them, we were wrong, and we are trending, knocking that down. And that, that Bungie has fallen short of expectations. Obviously, they still have Marathon in the works. And yeah, I have a bad feeling. I feel like I'm not the only one here, but I have a bad feeling about Bungie's continued existence long term. Like Marathon, like they have invested enough in Marathon that they will try to give it. So let's see here. What's the right way to tell this without there's Concord, the shooter that launched and then unlaunched, is a pretty unique situation that is very unlikely to happen again for a variety of reasons. One of which is that Sony has changed up a lot of its processes to make sure that there are checks and balances in its testing process and what have you, to make sure that they are not being bamboozled by people who might just say, yeah, everyone who we show the game to loves it, nothing to change. So there's Concord taught a very hard lesson, I think, to not just Sony, but I think anyone paying attention in the industry went like, oh shit, we got to make sure that never happens to us. And I think that they are probably putting a much closer watch. This is something that I think that Microsoft learned sometime around the release of Redfall in a different way, in a different way, but the lessons are sort of the same. Of just like, okay, especially like, like we really need to keep a closer eye on this thing and make sure that these games are actually coming together. We can't just like get the reports and go, sounds like it's great. Like, we need to make sure we're doing due diligence on all these projects multiple times over the course of development and make sure that this is all like on the up and up and going the way we want it to, so that we can make changes if we need to, if we're going to kill a game, if we see that a game's not doing. Like, I imagine that some of the power, and Bungie, you know, like they have said as much that Bungie is not as independent as it used to be. They are integrating part of that company to bring it in a little closer, so it is under a slightly more watchful eye. But I think that's something that probably ends up applying to every studio under the Sony umbrella, and at this point should really apply to everything that Microsoft owns as well, if it's not, because of stuff like Redfall. I think that they even had quotes around the Redfall release that were just like, yeah, maybe we didn't keep as close an eye on that thing as we should have. And, you know, like, whether that's Matt Booty as the head of studios or whatever, like, you know, people need to be able to know what these teams are doing and if those games are coming together or whatever. Right. And so I think Concord probably taught Sony that very hard lesson about like, okay, we can't just like take people's word for it. We need to know. And so I imagine something like Marathon probably gets as full of a push as it can get. Right? Like it's had a troubled time. You know, the art thing was a huge blow. People are still kind of iffy on the idea of the genre, though I think the success of Arc Raiders is probably at least giving people like a certain amount of like, okay, all right, maybe there's a path forward. And I do think there is a path forward where Marathon makes it and ends up working. You know, like if they can deliver the right game, I do think that there is a potential user base for that sort of thing. You know, you look at Arc Raiders and you look at what it's doing for solo play, and you look at, you know, some of the different things that it's trying to address. I think that Marathon can get there as well. It has the potential to, anyway, with enough time and effort and whatever. But like, they still haven't necessarily confirmed a ship date other than, I think, this fiscal year, right? So by March, but we'll see. Anyway, point being, I think Marathon will get as full of a rollout as they can give it, and it won't be something that they pull the trigger on 3 weeks in and go, oh, fuck this, kill it, because they will have vetted every piece of that thing before it ships. They will not ship it unless they're like, okay, we've got a plan that involves a minimum of this much runway. If it does not hit this mark by this point, then we can have a shutdown conversation or whatever, you know, like whatever, right? Like, they probably know what that is. But they probably have like a pathway of like, okay, we're going to sell it for this amount of money. We can lower that price or make it free to play down the line if we feel like that's something that is going to be a meaningful lever to pull. We can, you know, monetize this way. We can monetize that way. We think that we can appeal to solo players in this particular way and teams in this particular way, and in different ways that they can try to address those sorts of scenarios. Point being, I don't think that they will ship. Yeah, and they can make it. Yes, you're right. Laser Ghost, they can make it a PlayStation Plus game as well before they go full free to play, which they probably would never actually do because you would need PlayStation Plus to play it. Well, that matters on PC. Going free to play would matter on PC, obviously. So there is still some reason there, but I believe, I guess I would say that I believe in Marathon to the extent that I think it is possible. I don't think it is some lost cause that they are just like flushing down the toilet. I do think that there is a scenario where Marathon pulls through all of this and actually is like, oh, this still has a really, like, it's a different art style to some extent, but it's still really cool and this and that. I do think that there is a world in which Marathon pulls through. But it's going to take a lot of work from a team who's had a lot of layoffs, and, you know, and in these earnings calls, they've, you know, they're not exactly painting a rosy picture of Bungie. You know, the quote here that Windows Central pulled for that is, regarding Destiny 2, partially due to the changes in the competitive environment, the level of sales and user engagement have not reached the expectation we had at the time of acquisition. While we continue to make improvements, we downwardly revised the business projection for the time being and recorded an impairment loss against a portion of the assets at Bungie. So they're not saying much about Marathon here, other than saying like, yes, it's still coming, and they're not really getting into the changes that are being made to it off the heels of the kind of more public test and the art stuff and whatever. But they have been running closed tests that I feel like, you know, those tests have been closed and NDA'd, but I've seen little bits and pieces of positivity around that I didn't see coming out of the public test. So maybe they'll pull it out, man. That seems like a gargantuan and very scary task, but maybe there's a world in which that actually fucking comes through. Mason in the chat says, maybe Bungie should make a single player shooter with a multiplayer mode, but that would never work. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, kinda. That would never work. Like, who cares? Like, and like, really think about it in terms of like the amount of money a game like that would make compared to taking your shot at doing something new and a free-to-play thing and a, you know, like, yeah, it wouldn't. Like, if they made Halo over again right now, a game that was the scope of a Halo and came out, like, I don't think that makes enough money in this environment for Sony to really care. They're not there to make that game. That's not the type of game, you know, like that's a game that then has to compete with Battlefield and has to compete with Call of Duty and all these other titans of the marketplace. Like, no, it doesn't punch through. You know? Like the game has changed. It's not, you know, like wishing for these developers to just like go back to the thing that they did 20 years ago is also a death sentence. So I don't think that, you know, under current ownership and current, you know, like the way things are right now, like will there eventually will an environment emerge where maybe something like that could be more viable? It's possible, but I don't see that as being something that Sony gives a shit about. Or they'd still be making Killzone games. You know, there's just there's not enough upside to it to matter. Especially with how competitive, you know, the multiplayer landscape is. Like, there's really, like, what's the point? You'd be throwing money away. Or, you know, maybe you turn a small profit, but who cares? Like, great, we spun our wheels for 3 years on a game and it broke even and gave us a little bit back. What are we going to do now? Shut the studio down because it doesn't matter for that amount of money? Great. Okay, great. Yeah, it's just, these companies are at a size where they want to take the big swings and they want to make that game. Like, they don't give a shit about a game that's going to turn a modest profit inside of their thing, unless it has some other knock-on effect that is benefiting the platform, or is now like this massive thing that they can exploit in different ways across different service games. You know, like, it's just not the way things are right now. So yeah, like, yeah, there's really, and I don't think players would care. I think if Bungie came out and said, like, we're making a single player shooter, like, yeah, you'd have some, you know, you'd have a bunch of guys like who would, we would all get our canes in the air and be like, those are the guys that made Halo. I mean, sure, most of them left and that dickhead got in a fist fight with somebody and they fired him, but like, that's the name they wrote on the box for Halo anyway. Like, is that how many people is that? Is that enough people to matter in today's day and age? Maybe. Probably not. Point being, it's brutal out there. It's brutal out there, but like by the numbers, you go like, well, Sony's revenue is looking fine and they're selling consoles and all this other stuff. I feel like the real story is that, hey, this thing is more expensive than it's ever been, and what's going to happen this holiday season? Do they have any kind of holiday sale? Do they do anything to try to entice people in this holiday season? They're 5 years in, you know, they're like probably 2-ish years out from launching a new console. Like, you know, what are you gonna do? Or do you want to goose the numbers? Does it matter? Or do you just go like, whatever, man, we're going to stay the course on this stuff. We don't have, like, what, you know, does Sony have anything shipping for the rest of the year? Or is Ghost of Yotei kind of it, right? Is that, Is Ghost of Yotei the last thing they're shipping? Let's see. Spider-Man 2 came out on PC this calendar year. MLB The Show. Last of Us Remastered came out on PC. Days Gone Remastered came out on PS5. Stellar Blade is a Sony-published game that came out in June. They published Death Stranding 2. They published Midnight Murder Club in August. Helldivers 2 on Xbox is theirs. Lost Soul Aside came out in, was that the end of August? They published that. They published Ghost of Yotei. They have no, that's it. Until Dawn came out in, that's a movie. That's the movie. So yeah, I don't think they have anything new for the rest of the year, which, is fine. Ghost of Yotei is very good, but it's not, they don't have a new thing to put alongside a console and bundle in. They could have an older thing. They could do a Call of Duty bundle, I guess, if they, Mason in the chat says a Death Stranding 2 bundle. I don't think Death Stranding 2 is something you bundle with a console. Is that something that do people like rush to stores to go like, finally? I don't know. I don't know if Death Stranding 2 is that game. So yeah, do they do, what kind of deal do they try to do? What kind of deal do they try to do around the holiday to kind of sweeten the pot for people? Is it an actual price drop? Do they do some kind of bundle? Is it, hey, you get a, extra long PlayStation Plus, 6 months of PlayStation Plus, or, or whatever, or something like that. I don't know. That's there's always the third party stuff as well. But I guess my point is do they just kind of stay the course on this stuff and just go like, fuck it, dude, GTA will come out eventually and we'll figure it out then. And once GTA is out and has sold a bunch, then we'll start figuring out if we're going to cut price on the console or whatever. Speaking of which, Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed again. On the 6th, last Thursday, Rockstar said GTA 6 is now set to launch November 19th, 2026. It's a pretty terse statement. We are sorry for adding additional time to what we realize has been a long wait, but these extra months will allow us to finish the game with the level of polish you have come to expect and deserve. We want to thank you again for your patience and support. While the wait is a little longer, we are incredibly excited for players to experience the sprawling state of Leonida. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. And return to a modern day Vice City. Yeah, okay. I don't know. At least they announced a date so that, other developers aren't wrapped up going like, oh my God, when is GTA going to ship? And when are we going to ship? And what are we going to do? And, some of that hand wringing can be maybe set to the side. In conjunction with, though, is it related to it? You be the judge, because I think ultimately we don't know. They have fired 31 workers from their UK studio. That happened on October 30th. And it just so happened that a lot of those folks were in the midst of talking to their union reps and trying to form a union and trying to unionize. And so Rockstar has been slammed for union busting. Not long after their good friend the Bens, everyone loves, they all love each other. Over at Build a Rocket Boy has also been taken to task by the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain for not handling their layoffs correctly. Rockstar gave a statement to Bloomberg on this to basically say, oh, they shared confidential information and we've had to fire these folks. Whereas I think it seems like that they also maybe were saying that to union reps and all this other stuff, and so it's not necessarily that they were disclosing things publicly. And so yeah, it just seems like a really fucking shit thing to do, and a shit way to do it. And so the union is extremely unhappy about all of that. The union has issued a statement, according to the BBC, to say we refute that confidential information was shared publicly. Yeah, I mean, you know, like the quotes here are trying to tie the things together. The union president, Alex Marshall, is saying, that Rockstar is trying to deflect from the real reason that they are firing the staff, and that this is union busting. And so the quotes here are like, they are afraid of hardworking staff privately discussing exercising their rights for a fairer workplace and a collective voice. Management are showing they don't care about delays to GTA 6, and that they're prioritizing union busting by targeting the very people who make the game. And that, according to that union, those workers were part of a group who were discussing forming a union at the company. And so that sounds like a pretty I mean, if this is all on the level, that sounds like a very textbook case of union busting to me. Based on those facts, I think that Rockstar has tried to say, no. Just like, okay. I think their defense is like, they said stuff, then they said stuff about confidential stuff, which again seems unlikely, or rather, even if it was true, was not of the salacious variety that harmed the game or anything about it per se. But this delay getting announced on the heels of this does make you wonder, were those 31 people absolutely key to the development of that game and finishing that game on a regular time frame, or they were already under the gun in a way that's like, if we're all working and getting it done, that like suddenly them having to fire 30 people, they're like, okay, actually now we do definitely have to delay it. That's been the kind of interesting thing about this, is people trying to tie those two things together, which I don't think there's any particular smoking gun there, but there's still more to say. There's some interviews with some of the folks that were fired that I think hit like yesterday that I haven't caught up on yet. Reggie Fils-Aimé got on a microphone and started talking about video games, as he occasionally does. This time it was with The Game Business, who talked to him about a lot of, kind of a lot of like, hey, here's what Nintendo is doing now. What do you think? And so it's him kind of handicapping some of the decisions and things that they that they have been doing, and talking a little bit about, Nintendo and the game industry in a general sense. I think the interesting thing he has to say here is actually about Xbox. It's a 45-minute interview that's like a fun listen if you're interested in hearing what he has to say in full. But they did pull out some quotes here as well for everyone else. It says, if there's one thing that has surprised Fils-Aimé about the third-party support on the Switch 2, it's the absence of Xbox. Microsoft has vocally supported Switch 2, but outside of a handful of projects like Tony Hawk and Indiana Jones, the company has made very few announcements related to Nintendo's new machine. And the quote he has here is, I'm surprised that Xbox has not yet fully embraced Switch 2 from a software perspective. Certainly some games could easily be ported over to Switch 2, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that. I thought there would be more, especially during this time frame leading into holiday. All through the fall, I was fully expecting some dedicated announcement, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I think a lot of us are kind of in that boat, that I think that, a lot of us were expecting to see a more focused push from Microsoft into Switch 2 territory, into releasing their games on Switch 2, but it has been a pretty slow rolling thing. There's probably a few reasons for this, right? I think if we look at some of the stuff that's been said about Microsoft and prioritizing its margins and whatever else, and all the layoffs they did, you do reach a certain point where you're like, okay, who's going to do this work? You're like, okay, we're busy trying to get these games out on the platforms we've already announced. I don't know. And the Switch 2 is just different enough to not always be an easy port. I do think that's the situation with Call of Duty. Is it's not necessarily the case that the Switch 2 can't handle Call of Duty, right? They're shipping Call of Duty on old platforms still. But it is a matter of, like, to do this right, there are technical hurdles that probably need to just be handled, and, you know, may require portions of the game to be engineered in a, like, dramatically different way in order to be up and running on a Switch 2. So it's not quite as easy as just like, I don't know, just click the button and hit the switch and, you know, I don't know. Somebody get Dave Lang on the phone. You know, like, there's work like that you can certainly do, and I wonder if they will end up outsourcing more and more of this stuff, but you probably can't go to, like, Beanox and go, hey, you're doing great work putting Call of Duty on the PC. This version of the things you're doing for Call of Duty on the PC are fantastic. Can you take, like, 30% of your people and now also devote them to Switch 2? You know, it's just probably not. It's never going to be quite that easy, right? Especially the first time out. Like, once you've, you know, done it once and you know what the hurdles are, and, you know, unless you're re-architecting large parts of Call of Duty on an annual basis, which they are not doing, you know, you kind of get that flow together, and it probably eventually happens. Crafty NYC says, didn't Nintendo ask devs to hold back software directly? So that was something that someone sent to me and said, oh, this is widely known in the dev community that they want developers to not make Switch 2 games. I've heard directly that's not the case. I've heard directly that there is no, because for as insane as that sounds, turns out, yeah, like, I'm pretty sure Nintendo's not out there going like, please don't make games for our system. And I've had that. Yeah, that is not the case. Like, there are situations where people don't have dev kits, and that's a whole different fucking thing that I think is getting sorted out as they go or whatever. But yeah, you know, there were some studios that were not getting dev kits in a timely manner. I bet Microsoft was not going to have that problem. They're Microsoft, right? They're Call of Duty, they're Activision, they're, you know, like, they shipped Tony Hawk, so clearly Activision is in possession of some dev kits somewhere for some part of that process, or maybe Iron Galaxy got them, and yeah, anyway, whatever. Like, the point being, they have shipped games on that hardware, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, there is you know, there is a opportunity, and I do think they will take advantage of it, to put their games out on Switch 2. And I imagine that the reason it hasn't happened yet is because there has been turmoil. There's been some amount of turmoil at Xbox, right? I mean, when is there not, right? But in terms of, like, the layoffs have been fairly dramatic. You know, you could envision a scenario where, like, oh, we want to get Forza Horizon out on the Switch 2. Hey, I don't think we're going to do a motorsport for a while now. Why don't we get Turn 10 to handle this? Oh, wait, we just laid off a lot of Turn 10. Oh, shit. Okay. Maybe they can't do that. You know, I imagine there are probably situations. I'm not saying that happened, but it would be very easy for me to believe that situations like that have happened across the organization for projects that they want to, you know, move forward on. And so that stuff probably was never going to happen in the time frame that Reggie thought it was, or that maybe even that we thought it was going to. But I'm guessing that even whatever forward movement they've had on that has probably slowed a little bit due to some of the other things that they're taking on. And Microsoft's business it's funny, you know, like, when you go and you look at Microsoft's business, like, yeah, the hardware sales are down, duh. Like, they're actively unpromoting their hardware with everything that they're talking about doing in the future. Like, there's not a lot of push out there to be like, dog, you should get an Xbox Series X now, more expensive. Get one, ask for it by name. Like, like there's not a ton of push on that front, right? And so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing poorly. Like, if anything, actually their numbers are looking pretty good based on some of the past numbers and some of the other things around software movement and Game Pass and whatever else. Like, there's, we'll see if Game Pass falls off a cliff on the other side of them raising the price. Like, that could be a thing that, I would expect that to have some kind of material change on their business one way or the other. But like, for as much as I think a lot of people just sit there and talk about like, oh, Microsoft, they're on the verge. Like, are they even going to be around in 6 months? Like, yeah, they make Minecraft and Call of Duty and like and Elder Scrolls. Like, they'll be fucking fine. Like, they will continue to change into a very different thing. And it's, not going to be the Xbox business the way you thought it was for the last 20 years, obviously. But they will, it's unlikely that they will just be going away anytime soon. What do you think is the de facto standard controller on the PC these days? Is it still an Xbox 360 controller, or are we moved forward to where it's now an Xbox One / Xbox Series X/S controller? I mean, it's still like, it's still X input is still kind of the ruling input method, I suppose. There's talk of a new controller from your friends at Valve. This is a weird, this Eurogamer's reporting on this. And maybe this is something that ends up shipping alongside a VR headset or something, like, who the fuck knows. But Brad Lynch, not that one, not the good one. The Brad Lynch that is frequently talking about Valve things, has posted a mock-up. So, okay, so he has seen, he claims to have seen a new Steam controller, and he has seen pictures of it and whatnot. He has not posted those pictures. He instead had an AI thing generate an accurate looking remake of the controller, specifically so that in case whoever leaked these photos to him, there's some identifying marker on it or whatever, specifically to not get this person in trouble. And so basically he's posting like you could have just drawn it or whatever, but like, it's the idea of it is that it is basically a standard controller, except it has the thumb pads of the Steam Deck kind of below the analog sticks. And that's the upshot of it. There's no back of the controller, so I don't know if it has triggers on the back. I would assume it would. And the idea is that this is going to be some kind of new controller that Valve is going to be debuting relatively soon, according to, again, this guy who has had a decent track record with Valve stuff in the past, I suppose. In fact, he is suggesting that it could be revealed tomorrow, which I don't know. And that could be tied into the reveal of their VR headset. There's a lot of like Valve hardware stuff kind of swirling around right now. And so that's sort of weird, but the idea is that it will also have like a sensor that will detect when your thumb is on the right stick or not, which could be used for like, I don't know, like if you could enable gyro aiming only when your thumb is on the stick and turn it off automatically when it's not, or vice versa, or like there's things you could do there around that. And then it has the touchpads of the Steam Deck. So basically it's like taking the Steam Deck controller or the controls on a Steam Deck and turning them into a controller, which I think is a decent idea, especially if you are thinking about, playing a variety of PC games on a TV. I don't know how useful this sort of thing would be for a VR style. I mean, sure, it would work fine, I guess. plenty of people play VR games with a standard controller. That's not a weird concept, but I think that this thing has more interesting legs on its own, separated from a VR headset. Because for a VR headset, you would also want hand controllers, like the existing Knuckles controllers or whatever it is that they're doing over at Valve these days. So I don't know. It feels like once a month here, we get a certain amount of like Valve hubbub that results in me saying like, I don't know, maybe they'll say something this week, and then they don't. So but I'll say it. I don't know. Like, this guy says that maybe they could be announcing this tomorrow. Who the fuck knows? Or maybe none of it's real. I don't know. But this looks like an interesting controller. If this actually feels good in the hand, I think that would be really neat to have something resembling mouse-like controls. Again, as someone that has a PC hooked up to a television right now, I do think that this would be useful. It is hard to have a mouse hooked up to a PC that's hooked up to your television that is not wireless, because it just forces certain annoying scenarios here. But yeah, I don't know. That could be very handy for, sometimes you got to go down to the tray and update your drivers. And, if you're holding a controller, that you can't really do that. So that's, I don't know. That seems like it could be kind of cool. Let's see. PlayStation's going to have a state of play today. They're doing 40 minutes on games that are this. They're referring to it as State of Play Japan. And it'll be a 40-minute show with a focus on games from Japan and as well as Asia. A special broadcast curated for gamers in Japan and Asia. It'll be broadcast in Japanese with English subtitles. So yeah, I don't know. Like, we'll see what they end up having here. VideoGamesChronicle.com speculates that maybe Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls could end up here. That's a game that fits the bill in terms of games being developed in Japan, because Arc is doing that game alongside XDev. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe we see some more information on that game there, along with potentially some new announcements. But yeah, that'll happen in a couple of hours here. I will tell you right now, I'm going to try to stream that. I just need to, in the downtime between the podcast and that stream, there's a couple of things I need to check on and make sure that can actually happen. But right now, I am hoping to be able to watch that live with y'all. Halo Infinite is going into, I guess, maintenance mode is what you might call it here. Their last major update will hit on November 18th. It's called Operation Infinite. And they're rolling out 200 never-before-released customizations and all sorts of other cosmetics and things for sale alongside this, as well as a new battle pass. They did battle passes relatively well. They never expired, and so you can still go back. I reinstalled the game a couple days ago, and you can still go buy every single one of those battle passes, and you choose which one is active at a given time. So that's the one you're contributing levels to. But yes, we've reached the end of the 10-year plan for Halo Infinite. They did it in just 4 years. I mean, more power to them. Crazy to pack 10 years of updates into 4 years, but wow, they must be tired. No, come on. Everything about Halo Infinite is like frustrating. Like if we use this moment here to kind of look back on it a little bit, it's a good game. In some ways, a great game that ran into a lot of trouble along the way. The multiplayer just seemed broken. A lot of their ideas for gaining XP or like the kind of metagame, out of game experience process, the stuff they launched with was terrible. And as they've corrected it further and further, I don't think they ever really hit upon a truly satisfying progression in any of that stuff. And even though they dramatically rebuilt it, this last update will come with some new map configurations, a lot of new cosmetics, and some updates to playlists and stuff like that. They are going to still do ranked seasons. They are still going to do daily and weekly challenges, which are like, it's your dailies and your weeklies. And so there will still kind of like that stuff will still exist on a rotation. This is not them saying the game is shutting down. It is just them saying like, hey, our next update is going to be the last big major update. And yeah, I think that this game suffered as a result of kind of the larger malaise that people kind of had about Microsoft even then, based on the delay of the game. And, the game launched technically shaky, which I think set it off on a really bad foot. And a lot of people just shit on it right out of the gate, which I found surprising at the time as someone who reviewed the game and played it pre-release. I was like, this is really cool. Like, it's not perfect, but like, it's really fun. Like the campaign is cool. There's some neat shit in here. Like it's not checking every box that past Halo games have done. And there will be people who don't like that. But in a general sense, I think it's still really fun. And then it came out and was just like, fucking bedlam, man. But some of that was because like the game just didn't work. Like not only was their progression system shitty, it also didn't work right at launch. So you would get out of a match and then not get the credit for the match you played. And there's just like all kinds of weird stuff for a game, again, that they launched as a free-to-play thing, with that progression being kind of key to you getting things without spending money. It was just a fucking, again, it soured the community right out of the gate on that stuff. And, a dedicated community stuck with it. And I think they eventually, felt like, hey, this is actually good and cool and whatever else, like as the stuff got fixed. But again, with a game as big as Halo, it's not how you want to look rolling out. And I think in some ways the game never really recovered from that. Rat Jago says the Master Chief Collection trained us for this. Yeah, I guess so, man. God, the Master Chief Collection, the number of like big long posts from them about like, all right, this is what we're doing to fix it, and we're listening to your feedback, and we're going to do an insider flight about the changes we're making, and we're going to do this and that. And man, it's a remake of the old Halo games. Like, this should be like a tee-up sort of, like, this is not the sort of thing you should have to be writing community apology letters about. This is the sort of thing you put out and go like, we did it. We remade the Halos. All right, go play them. But god dang, man. Yeah, I guess, maybe it's not just purely Infinite's fault that Halo has, seen better days. Yeah, I don't know, man. I liked Halo 4. Halo 5 was fine. And I liked Infinite, but I think, a lot of damage had been piled up on it at that point, and now they're just going to remake it for a new generation of shooter fan, I guess. I don't know. Crazy to think about. That to me is like the crazier story than Halo coming to PlayStation, right? It is, man, like, whether it was the games themselves or just like the, technical aspects of like, hey, this is a great game with problems, or what, like even Infinite, even for all the nice things I'll say about Infinite, it was still fucked up enough at launch that it dragged on everything overall. Like, it's a bummer, man. Like, Halo was, even as someone who didn't really give a shit about Halo 1 or 2, there was still, like, it was very easy to acknowledge, like, dude, people really like Halo. It's understandable why they like it. Like, you understand why this franchise matters to a growing number of people, and like as that initial trilogy was was happening, right? It was very easy to see why it was such a big deal. And I think Microsoft did a good job of positioning it well. And like, they made it matter. And at some point, like, the games weren't right and the pushes weren't right. And the way you push games became different. And, like, just Halo kind of, I really feel like Halo kind of withered away. And it's probably no one person's fault, unless you just want to go right to the top and say it's automatically, leadership's fault, which sure, yeah. But it just like, it's one of those death by 1,000 cuts situations of just like, yeah, Halo 4, the new enemies were dumb. Halo 5 had this card system that was just kind of strange, and people didn't really resonate with it, and it was just, the story wasn't great either, and and 343 started to get a little stink on them as a result of that. Some of which I always felt was like unwarranted. Like, the games would come out and they were fine. Like Halo 4 was like mostly fine. But they were trying to find their way in multiplayer as well. Like, okay, how can we modernize this instead of just putting out Halo over and over and over and over again? And so, what if he could run? What if we did this? Can we aim down sights? Can we, like, no, but yes, but no. And, and they flirted with all of that stuff so many different ways. And I think Infinite really settled into a good groove and plays really well, while still feeling like enough like Halo. It still feels modern in its own way as well. And yeah, it's someone could probably write a really good, and the story's not over yet, right? But you could write a really big feature about like, hey, the downfall of Halo, or Halo, what the fuck happened, or like, I thought we were finishing the fight here anyway, what the fuck, why did you make 3 more of these? Like just the everything that happened after Reach and ODST, post Bungie, really, if you want to say that, I think like there is like, I bet it would be fascinating, because it's people that all probably have the best of intentions to try to make Halo continue to matter every single bit as much as it always has, and just time and time again, it just not getting there. And it's like, this isn't quite there, and like, this is fine, but it's not as good as it used to be, or here you don't have the split screen co-op, and so that's going to piss some people off, and here's this and that, and like, and the competitive landscape obviously changing as well. Like, I think Halo 3 hit its peak right around the time that, or Halo, I guess I would say, hit its peak right around the time that Call of Duty was really taking off too. And so, the things really changed then. And, it's just I bet that would be a very interesting story to tell. I bet those would be interesting interviews to do. VideoGamesChronicle.com is reporting that Electronic Arts remains committed to the future of Mass Effect. This is in the wake of, I think a lot of people looked at the upcoming sale of EA to Saudi Arabia and friends and said like, oh dude, they're never going to make another Mass Effect. Or looked at the sales of Dragon Age and the like, all of these things. I think there are a lot of different things you can point to, and all of it equals up to, yeah, I don't know, man. We just had N7 Day, which, if you're not familiar, good, keep it that way. But sorry, it is November 7th, because N7 is a meaningful term in the Mass Effect universe. N7, November 7th, has come to be a day where they say something about Mass Effect. I think this year the most dramatic and interesting thing they said about Mass Effect was you can get an N7 t-shirt and track pants in Skate 4 for free. Which you might still be able to get as of this listening. I don't know. That was ending soon. I think the like, hey man, here's a day for this property, I think super sucks. When people try to say things like, it's March 10th, that's Mario, right? March 10th, what do we, I like my initial, every part of my reaction to that is some form of, oh, fuck off. May 4th, There's one for Aliens, right? People try to do one for Aliens, right? There's some number in Aliens, right? It's so dumb. So yeah, like they have nothing to say about Mass Effect because they're in production on it and whatever else. So they're not going to have some dramatic big like, oh, it's N7 day. Here's your big, like whatever, man. They're going to announce it when they have something to say. But Mike Gamble, the executive producer of Mass Effect, did post a small update onto the BioWare blog. And not really any major information about the game, but he does say, like you, we've heard the rumors lately. You've made it clear you care deeply about what's next. So let's start by setting the record straight. The next Mass Effect game is in development, and EA and BioWare remain committed to telling more stories in this universe. The truth is, the last few years have been incredibly busy time at BioWare. The team is heads down, focused exclusively on Mass Effect. We have a lot of universe to cover, lots of features to build, and lots of romances to figure out. We're excited by what we're building, but we promise you when we're ready, it'll be a lot of fun to show. Until then, thank you for your patience, because y'all are thirsty for news, and I see you looking for secret meaning in my tweets. Beyond the next game, there's more to get excited about. I haven't talked about it much, but you might have heard a little something about a TV series. We've been partnering closely with Amazon on it, and we're excited with what the talented team over there is coming up with. That's about it, really. He says that the show will explore a brand new story within the universe's timeline and will be set after the original trilogy. I don't know if that is brand new information. So when he talks about the rumors, I think he's talking about this notion of people going like, oh, dude, they're never going to ship Mass Effect, which I don't think is so much a rumor. I don't think like there are no rumors saying, oh, they're going to kill Mass Effect. It is more a gut feeling based on the landscape and the just the environment in which we now all live. And with that in mind, I would say that I am currently still on the track of I would not be shocked if that Mass Effect game never came out. That's not a rumor. That's not me going like, I heard they're going to kill it. That's like, yeah, like maybe that thing makes it, maybe it doesn't. I don't know that that's something that EA will be dramatically committed to in 2 years. Like they'll tell you all day long right now, yes, of course we're committed to it. Because they're a public company and they're not going to say anything less. I think that BioWare's track record and some of the things that Dragon Age that last Dragon Age was cool for what it was. It sounds like it was like pulling fucking teeth to get it out, but I guess everything is now. I don't know, maybe it always was. So yeah. I think when you look at how well Dragon Age did or didn't do last time out, and you look at the overall landscape for single player storytelling and like all of that sort of stuff, the stuff that EA has always been a little muted about when it comes to supporting it and whatever else. Yeah. I believe every single thing that he is saying in that message about them being in production and them being super busy building the next Mass Effect. I would also not be shocked if 18 months from now in some earnings call or right around that time they said, like, anyway, we've decided to make some readjustments and we're no longer, that somewhere down the line they walk away from the project. That would just not shock me at all based on the world and EA and everything, right? Until that game is like, until that game is like I'm holding a controller and playing it. But maybe not that far. But until that's at a point where they've got a name and trailers. But even then, when they're out there actively promoting it with a realistic release date and all of that stuff, maybe then I will start to believe like, oh yeah, this will probably actually ship. But right now I'm like, yeah, it could happen. But again, if you told me tomorrow, or if you told me tomorrow, I'd be surprised. If you told me 6 months from now, like, oh yeah, hey, guess what? EA decided to kill Mass Effect. What about BioWare? Yeah, they're all gone. I would, like, no part of me would be like, oh, wow, I can't believe that. Like, I find that all incredibly easy to believe. Incredibly easy to believe. I hate to be so pessimistic about it, but I guess the other thing I would say is, like, I'm not convinced that they should make more Mass Effect. But that's, I don't know. I realize I'm in a shrinking group of people that feel that way, but for me, it was the end of Mass Effect 3 and them trying to change it to capitulate to like that whole part of it I thought was really filthy. And it's not just the ending of Mass Effect 3, it's the entirety of Mass Effect 3 and the way they brought that story together. Even, like, man, like, so when he talks about the TV show, and he says the show will explore a brand new story within the universe's timeline and will be set after the original trilogy. It won't be a retread of Commander Shepard's story because, after all, that's your story, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for the story. The whole third chapter of it was like the most fucking, like, hey, how quickly can we tie this shit up? Oh, did you care about this little thread? Wrap it up. Like, Mass Effect 3 is depressing as someone who was invested in Mass Effect 1 and 2. Like, don't. And then Andromeda happened. Remember, like, I know we all try to forget about it. Remember the lady holding the gun backwards? Remember Andromeda? Dude. Come on. So, yeah, it's hard. Like, you know, like, I've said it before. I bought fucking Mass Effect hoodies and all. I was like, oh, this is like really, like, just visually, like, I really like the design of this. This is a cool track jacket with the fucking stripes down the sides. It's like the skate, the pants you can get inside of Skate are literally like yeah, no, those are good. Those are good. I would wear those. In fact, I have those somewhere. After Mass Effect 3 came out, I stopped wearing all that shit. I think I pulled the jacket out like once. In the years since, but I didn't feel comfortable wearing Mass Effect merchandise because I was like, man, fuck what they did to this. They fucking ruined this. So I'm still kind of on that. I'm still kind of on that shit. So when they say we're making a new Mass Effect, I'm just like, fucking who cares? You squandered the thing, like the thing that this is all based on, that you're like, we've got to make more Mass Effect because it's so good. Like, yeah, except for the part where it all got fucked up. Like, come on. I'm not going to fucking fall for that shit again. Anyway, that's it for the news. We'll see. Let's check out some emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. You can send in your emails to me. I will read them. That sound convincing. I will read them. And some of them will make it onto the show. Kyle in Austin writes in and says, what are some of your favorite studio names? Your recent NES Ultima Science reminded me that Pony Canyon exists. I also have an appreciation for Love de Lick. And while they're all awful generic studio names, like Nintendo Entertainment Analysis and Development are coldly charming. So yeah, what are your favorite studio names? Brownie Brown. I'm a big Brownie Brown guy. Yeah, Creative Business Unit 3 is a really great name. Is a really great name for a studio. Yeah, A2M before those cowards changed it to whatever they changed it to. A2M and AM2, they should have had to fight. I think that would have been good. Whoopee Camp is good. Yeah, Whoopee Camp is good. I I feel like I'm mostly drawn to Japanese studio names because sometimes they just get a little further out there. Yeah, Wolf Team. Wolf Team's really good. But Wolf Team is only really good when you like think about the full, when you're like game creative staff. Wolf Team, like the intro is the part that goes hard. Fill-In Cafe. They're pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, Whoopee Camp is really good. This is the Tomba people, right? Whoopee Camp. Yeah. All the Sega studios were like fun, you know, when it was like not just AM2 and AM3 and stuff, but when they were like you know, UGA, United Game Artists. I thought that was a cool Smile bit. Like that whole generation of Sega being wild, I thought was really cool. But yeah, Clap Hands is great. Clap Hands is great. But yeah, Brownie Brown. I could not tell you a single game that Brownie Brown makes off the top of my head. But Brownie Brown. Then they renamed, right? They're it's annoying, man. Brownie Brown Incorporated is such a fucking good name for a thing. And they renamed it to One Up Studio. Which is like dumb. Yeah, Chef 7 said there's a studio named themselves after a Cannibal Ox song. It's crazy. Like people around. But so this is, they renamed themselves to One Up Studio in 2013, and that was because of some internal structure change. And so another studio was spawned out of that is just called Brownies. So some of the Brownie Brown folks went on to start Brownies. Yeah, those are all pretty good. Let's see here. Liam writes in and says, first time, long time. We're all sort of familiar with the large scale cost cutting and layoffs in the industry. Do you see a future in which any of this is reversed? The AI bubble will likely burst, but will there ever be a time that pushing as much as development as possible to cheaper support studios elsewhere in the world isn't as attractive anymore? Would love your perspective. So I don't think the problem is that there are support studios around the world. I think that, you know, as games get bigger, it's better. Like in some ways, you know, if you were to truly unionize the video game industry, you would have people that like would go from project to project, much like people working on films do. You know, you would have visual effects studios that are called in to work on this, and you know, like you would have probably more outsourcing in that sort of environment, not less. The outsourcing isn't the problem. It's, you know, it is that a lot of these studios. So I guess my short answer is, do I think that that any of this is reversed? Do I think that there will be another boom period for hiring in video games? Sure. Probably. I mean, that's how all this stuff is cyclical to an extent. But right now, a lot of the stuff we're seeing is a couple of factors that are combining to form like some of the most fucking oppressive working conditions and work environments and just employment landscapes that, I mean, certainly that I've ever seen in my lifetime, but you know, like this is unique in a lot of ways. People hired up in the pandemic. And I remember at the time, like, you know, like hearing that fact and going like, well, what's going to happen when this ends and everyone goes back to work? People were like, oh, so many people are playing video games now. It's great. We started a whole nother team. We went from being a 1-team studio to a 3-team studio. We got 2 into production on a big thing and then 1 smaller thing, Skunkworks and this and that. And they, like, a lot of companies started hiring up because interest rates were in a position where it was easy to borrow money. And just like a lot of factors combined to make money cheap. combined with this boom period in time spent playing games. And so a lot of companies, you know, were doing their fiduciary duty, and we have to hire up to take advantage of this. We got to strike while the iron is hot. We're going to go and do this. And I remember then just being like, well, what's going to happen when everyone has to fucking go back to work? Like, what's going to happen when all of this, like this is a bubble? Like, what happens when all of this goes away? Are you going to be able to keep all those people busy in an environment where you're making fewer games again, or that there isn't, the demand is different, or whatever? And I feel like a lot of the answers when I would ask questions like that were basically the equivalent of someone going like, what? I mean, come on, you know, like just hand waving it all away. That's not to say that I was some like incredibly smart person and I saw through it. You know, like a lot of people did. It was like, you looked at it and go like, well, common sense would dictate that this is not going to happen like this. But people don't run companies on, you know, especially public companies and shareholders and earnings. Like, people don't run any of that shit on common sense. They run it on the whims of the market. And, oh, if we're not doing this, if we're not growing, then people are going to wonder, hey, I heard gaming is growing in a big way. Why aren't you? And then they're going to sell all the stock and we're going to go to shit and we're going to fucking close down. So it was basically like, get on board with this and be part of this collective delusion that everything's going to be fine, or just get left behind. And so everything started pushing in that direction. And this is before the AI stuff became the AI stuff that it is now, right? It was, you know, like things were different then. So it was always this feeling of just like, well, eventually this stuff's going to normalize and level out. And I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of that. Like, maybe, you know, people that took up gaming during the pandemic will stick with it to some degree. And maybe this will just be good for gaming overall, and hooray. And maybe that would have, you know, maybe we would have been able to ride that part of it out. But then you have like a lot of this very anti-worker, not to say that like the market was pro-labor before the pandemic, right? But you have these kind of unique situations being parlayed into outright hateful policy against your employees, you know? And so you have these like companies that are just like, nope, we're returning to the office. Like, after years of figuring out how to work remotely and a lot of the nature of work changing, some companies' reaction to that was like, all right, everybody back to the office. Fuck you. Like, oh, you move somewhere else? Eat a dick. Get back to the fucking office. And being completely inflexible on that front, even before it was potentially even safe to do so. And so you had a lot of policies there in place that were just like, okay, you have workers that are like actually unwilling to do that now. And they've shown that they can be effective and they can contribute and all this other stuff for, you know, if not more effective in some of these scenarios, being ordered back to the office. And layoffs being blamed on, like, you know, like remember that every single one of these clashes comes with layoffs. Like, oh, we're laying off people who aren't going to move back. Fuck you. And so like a lot of that stuff was used to shake people loose. And at the time, you know, there was a lot of talk about like, oh, you know, I remember talking to someone who's going to be like, yeah, like this was a couple of years ago now. Like, this summer's going to be super brutal, but it'll probably level out after that. And we'll kind of figure out where the floor is and just get back to work, and new things will start and money will be there. And you know, like things will happen along the way to kind of get us heading back in the right direction overall. But you had, you know, some of the changes on interest rates make it so it was harder for companies to borrow money. And so it was harder for them to raise money, you know, like a lot of stuff around that. And then you had this AI shit come into being. And for as garbage as the AI stuff is, the main good thing AI is good for is tricking fucking idiots into thinking it's going to fucking take the roles of people in like large numbers. And so you've got executives who were already mad about how the return to office stuff went. We're already going like, all this stuff fucking sucks. And these fucking people, why aren't they fucking blah, blah, blah. And then you've got this other thing coming up that's like, hey, by the way, what if you could fire all these people and replace them with a computer? And people are like, that sounds great. And they don't stop to go like, does it work? Or they go like, oh, it'll work eventually. Or it doesn't matter if it works or not. We just want to get rid of these people. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just hire different people and we'll pay them less. And, you know, and so it becomes a way for them to exert control over the workforce, because those guys, they want stuff. These workers, they want a comfortable office chair. They want to see their family on the weekends. They want to not crunch. What the fuck are you talking about? You know, like, let's wipe all these people out and replace them with people who don't know any better, and hope for the best, or whatever, right? All of that stuff ends up probably contributing in its own little ways. And so, like, I think it's really, like, the really cynical and fucked up part about all this is I think that you have people out there that are, you know, laying people off and saying like, oh, AI is going to transform the workforce and we're going to need this, that, and the other. I think there are people who are probably smart enough in those positions to know that that's not true. That, you know, for whatever, you know, whenever the AI bubble pops and like people will eventually figure out like, okay, what are the uses for this technology that are actually maybe like reliable and not all fucking nonsense. And it's not fucking vibe coding, you know, and it's probably not QA as much as Square wants to think so, you know. But remember, you know, part of QA process is there's such a thing as automated testing. Like, that stuff does exist in software. And so there are automated tests you can do and so on. And, you know, so it's easy to look at it and go like, oh, well, maybe AI could do this. Like, I don't know, man. AI can't do shit. Really? Reliably. You know? Like, are you gonna like turn on the talk to computer button and then go like, book me an airplane ticket and trust that it's gonna do it for you? No. You're gonna triple check that fucking thing, and it's gonna take you more time to triple check the work that the fucking computer did than it would for you to just go to a goddamn website and buy a fucking plane ticket, stupid. So, like, none of these uses right now are actually valuable. Now, maybe you end up in some scenario where you're like, actually, you know, being able to, you know, the machine learning aspect of DLSS and, you know, being able to work with audio in a real specific way. Like, you know, like, imagine a scenario where stem separation was a much more refined technology, because it's not fully there, but it's close. Imagine a world where around the release of, like, say, Rock Band 2, stem separation in audio became a thing, and what that would have done for harmonics and their ability to put songs into Rock Band. That were in cases where they couldn't find the masters, like, oh, these masters are long lost. We wish we could do it, and like they did some of that work themselves, and you know, like the technology was not what it needed to be then, and you know they tried to do it, but like that's the sort of thing that's like, okay. So, like, there's applications of this overall technology that will probably end up being useful in some way, shape, or form for years to come. But when it comes to reliable information and all of that stuff, like, no, it's not there. But I think that a lot of the people that are out there saying, oh, AI is going to do this, and that, they don't care. They want to look like they're on the wave because they want their stock price to go up. And they want to make sure that their workforce is appropriately frightened. Like, oh, we could be replaced by robots any day now. I better not ask for a raise. Better not ask for this. Better not ask for that, because they're just going to wipe us all out. And so it becomes part of the overall kind of larger, you know, struggle. I mean, ultimately, it's, you know, like all of this is just kind of class warfare. Like, you boil it on down to it, it's really just, it all kind of comes down to that. It is all, like, AI is just a tool that is being used to fucking keep a thumb on the working man. So, like, you know, what do you do with that? But I do think that, you know, when that bubble bursts, much like everyone stopped talking about fucking VR, and much like everyone stopped talking about NFTs and all of this other horse shit, eventually people will stop fucking talking about AI. And that will end up actually, you know, obviously, like, when that bubble pops, that's going to be a really fucking bad situation because of how much of the economy is being propped up by companies that are, you know, that have massive investments in AI. or their whole value. Like what happens when, you know, what percentage of Nvidia's stock price vanishes when this finally fucking goes, right? Is it all of it? Probably not, because they do still have some kind of business on selling things to people who play video games. But all of that shit got too expensive for any of us to fucking afford anymore. But all these other companies, OpenAI, all this other stuff, like how do they, you know, like the amount of money it takes for them to keep their doors open and lights on and all this other stuff, like what are they making of value? Nothing. They're making like 15-second fucking disgusting video clips that look like shit. And like morons look at them and go, huh, this is going to be all movies someday. It's like, yeah, I don't know. If you hate movies, I guess. Like, yeah, sure. You think this technology is going to improve and also become cheap enough to produce to actually make that work? Because that has not been the story so far. So unless there's some quantum fucking shift or massive breakthrough in this technology, the idea of inference getting cheaper or the technology getting better or hallucinating less, like that stuff is just a fucking pipe dream. And so every time you see these headlines from people that are going, well, we've got to establish, you know, we need to make sure that there's a watchdog out there preventing rogue AIs. We need to make sure that rogue intelligence isn't out. And you're like, are you fucking kidding me? These things can't even do fucking math. Like, what the fuck? So yeah, I don't know. I think that there is an amount of delusion happening around this, but that's like not unique to AI, and the stock market has been powered by delusion multiple times over the years. You know, even when people knew like, oh, this is wrong, this is all going to fucking blow up, they're still like, yeah, but if I can get in and out before it blows up, there's still money to be made. And so, you know, you have like all these fucking people who normally would know better going like, all right, we're going to fucking do this and we're going to try and fucking get our money and fucking get out before the fucking AI cops show up and crash the whole market. So yeah, I do think that, you know, to answer your question, like, will there ever be a time when they're pushing it as development as possible? You're framing it as like a support studio situation. I don't think that situation changes, and I don't think that's an actual major problem. I think more support studios, smaller teams of people, highly specialized in specific things, whether that's the production of voice work or, you know, hey, we're the people who can fucking make your trees look really hot, or, you know, we're the people that get licensed soundtracks for your game, like all of these kind of different, or we have art teams all over the world that you call us and we'll put fucking 80 artists on your game tomorrow, you know, whatever you end up needing, right? And the economics of that may end up getting shakier and shakier, right? Because this idea of like, oh, these games can only get bigger and more expensive and all this other stuff, like that's, you know, why you needed all this outsourcing to begin with, is because you're generating all of these assets and doing all of this work. Now, if you started making smaller things in scope and in production wise and fidelity and whatever, then maybe some of that situation changes, but I don't necessarily think that that's on the horizon per se. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that stuff eventually nets out. But I do think that like the bursting of the AI bubble is gonna. The question there isn't like, oh, are video games going to be back to normal once the AI bubble bursts? It's going to be like, how expensive will groceries get after the AI bubbles burst? How much money will you have to spend on food and shelter and stuff after the entire economy fucking collapses? And, you know, like all of that stuff is the fun things to think about. Josh writes in, how much confidence do you have that Microsoft can pull off this Xbox on PC thing? When talking about the beta device that is the ROG Xbox Ally X, there's a lot of, well, if they can pull this off. But Microsoft has tried this kind of thing before with games for Windows. I'm not convinced the official device will be much different than the Asus device. Has any Microsoft PC game initiative ever worked out? What's different this time around? And we don't even have the Windows Experience Index game score this time. What's different this time around is that I think they've tried everything else. And this is going to be their main thrust. When games for Windows happened, it was, hey, is there a way for us to bring Xbox games to PC? And that was their first attempt at it, Games for Windows Live. And, you know, they probably learned very important lessons in that process that got them to where they are today. Now it's more like, okay, this is the full thrust of Xbox. This is the full thrust of every single bit of our gaming, resources are going into the idea of getting this stuff where it needs to be. Games for Windows Live was bad because a lot of times it didn't work. But like the idea was somewhat sound because the idea is where they eventually got to, in different ways. The idea was, can we bring a subset of Xbox features to the PC? Friends lists, unified invites, controller support. I mean, it was a big part of the Xbox 360 controller becoming that standard controller on PC. Like that was part of that same push in a lot of ways. And so, like all of that stuff was, when it worked, it was fine. When Games for Windows Live worked, which granted was not as often as it needed to be, which is why we're talking about it at all. But I think the core of that idea was okay. It was just clunky and annoying, and it was an authentication thing. It was DRM at a time when people didn't want to hear about that. Now they don't care. People love to talk about how much they don't like DRM, but it's not stopping anybody, from buying. Like, no one's going like, oh, I can't believe I have to, everyone likes to gripe about like, oh, this thing launched the EA client or I can't believe I have to launch the Ubisoft client just to play this game on Steam. But as long as the games are on Steam, they don't care. It's an annoyance. I think that like games should not be able to fucking force you to create a new login and password for their game if they're on Steam. I think Valve should be like, nah, man, just if you can't automatically create it in the background based on data we give you, then don't do it. Because I think that shit sucks. But yes, do I think that Microsoft can pull off this Xbox on PC thing? I'm going to say yes, I do think they can pull it off because I think the stakes have never been higher for them when it comes to maintaining some level of control over the game market and being more than just a publisher of games. They used to have their own dedicated hardware in order to have that foothold. And now they're going to try to forego that in favor of, it's kind of a PC. But I think, again, if they don't pull that off, there's nowhere left for them to go other than just to become like Activision. They end up looking more like Activision than Microsoft, than Xbox or whatever. They publish games. They're a publishing team with a publishing division. They work with their counterparts at PlayStation to make sure the games get published. They work with their friends at Nintendo. They talk to Valve about putting their games on Steam, and they just go about their business, And so, as far as Microsoft wants to have a foothold in that space of running their own marketplace and doing all of that stuff, I think they need to do more than what they're doing. And I don't think they've been doing well. No one's looking at the Xbox app over the years and been like, this is really great. Like no one's coming away from that going like, here it is. Finally, you've found the way to deliver games on PC. You found a Steam competitor. You found a way to build a better mousetrap. Congratulations, everyone. They have never done that. The Xbox app today is not where it needs to be. Every piece of this puzzle is not where it needs to be. And so, I think it's a lot of work that they have to do, but also if they don't get it right, large parts of their business goes away. Like, how can you manage Game Pass without these things? If they can't do this and all of their oomph is going into making PC games and a PC storefront where Game Pass is subscribed to, if they start selling these devices and the experience is bad and console players who are not familiar with how to work a Windows PC can't do the things they want to do easily, the whole thing goes up in smoke for them. It's not like like that's when there's suddenly like, okay, we are no longer, if you want to talk about the end of Xbox, it's there. Like if they fail on this, then suddenly you don't hear the word Xbox anymore, right? Like they will still have some kind of gaming presence because they own all of these major video games and studios and all this other stuff. Like that stuff doesn't disappear overnight. but they probably stop using it's not Xbox Game Studios. They at some point they'd go back to, okay, you see the Microsoft logo at the top of this and then the Activision logo, or maybe they rebrand the whole thing to Activision and just go, fuck it. Bethesda launches with an Activision logo at the top of the game. Like, so I look at it as the stakes for them have never been higher, and that is what gives me not a confidence, but a feeling that they will dedicate every resource they can to get this as right as they possibly can. And it doesn't matter right now. They don't need, like, the ROG thing is a partner device, and ROG would have shipped that thing anyway. Even if Windows, they shipped one a few years ago, right? That didn't have any of these optimizations in it, and it still ran Windows. And you're like, this thing is fucking crazy. Like, Armory Crate really sucks. And the Xbox app is a better thing than the Armory Crate app is, I guess, but it's still not what it needs to be, right? So, yeah. Anyway, I look at it that way, as like, the stakes are too high. They make too much money on Game Pass and selling games and everything else to just be a third-party publisher. And so they're going to do everything they can to get this right. And so I think, that's why they have years left. They have like 2 years left to work on this, right? They've got a foundation in place. They think they know what they want to do, right? Like, oh, Windows 11, we do this Xbox app and we turn off some more background stuff. Like, if you give them 2 years to iterate on that and push and push and push and push and push, the hope is that they get to a place where, okay, we've successfully consoleized this experience. But again, if they don't, I don't think there's any place left for them to go. So we'll see. That's ultimately that's the answer, right? Is we'll see. I think there's a ton of potential for them to get it right, but certainly no guarantees. But this has been the road they've been on for a while, right? So one would imagine that an abundance of very smart people are freaking out already about the time they have left, right? Like, oh God, we've got to do this, 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 and this. Like, even the scope of the problem is probably a little frightening right now, I would think. But doable. They've done crazier shit. They re-engineered the entirety of the Xbox One. DRM and all. Like, they had to rebuild the huge parts of that experience in the 11th hour to ship that thing. Yeah, they've, a lot of crazy shit has happened. Anyway, that's going to do it here for me. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday for some stuff. And on Friday, we'll rank some 8-bit Nintendo games. And yeah. Have a good one. We'll be back next week with more of the podcast. See you soon.